In Naruto, the traveling frog brought back the brilliant fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Danzo takes action. Sasuke's goal is clear. On the other side, the third Hokage was still fighting with the second Hokage. Facing his teacher, the third Hokage Unfei Hiruzen also took out all his skills and used all 5 types of ninjutsu. Even Senjutsu Birama couldn't help but sigh. It seems that you haven't wasted your skills for so many years. It was indeed a correct choice to choose you as the third Hokage. Thank you for your appreciation, but even so, I still want to seal you. Please don't be surprised. Senjutsu Birama laughed at the words. I'm already a dead man, so what's the harm in dying again? Besides, this world doesn't belong to me. It's a relief to see you again. As time went by, Orochimaru also found that something was wrong. If this continued, I'm afraid that all the masters of Konoha would rush to this direction after dealing with other sound ninjas. At that time, it would be too disadvantageous. He immediately became ruthless and used all his chakras to maximize the combat power of the first and second Hokage. The person being controlled could naturally feel it and said in a cold voice, I suggest you don't do this. You can't control the two of us. If you release all your strength, your body will be the first to collapse. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of Orochimaru's mouth. Even if I die, I will destroy Konoha. Senju Hashirama frowned. He didn't know what kind of entanglement this kid in front of him had with Konoha. If he knew that Orochimaru was once an elite ninja of Konoha, he didn't know what kind of expression he would show. He made seals with both hands again, and while holding hands, he also felt that the power of his ninjutsu this time was extraordinary, so he quickly asked everyone to get out of the way. A huge wooden hut appeared, with golden light bursting out of his eyes. It was dozens of meters high, and it was not much smaller even against Gamabunta. This was the jutsu that could take on the tailed beast Tamakijan when fighting against the Uchiha class. The others were quite shocked when they saw this ninjutsu and wanted to dodge it, but the attack range of this ninjutsu was too large, and they were all hit hard and flew away. Even Gamabunta was knocked to the ground again. Facing this situation, Jiraiya could only use his own fairy technique. Toad boss, help me delay for a while. I'll go and ask the 2 immortals to come over. The first and second generation Hokage are too powerful. Even so, I'm afraid they haven't used their true strength yet. Toad boss nodded. This was the first time he encountered such an outrageous enemy. He couldn't help but doubt frog life. With such a big commotion, naturally, he couldn't be busy with other people who were interested, such as Danzo. As the leader of the route, he had been spying on the position of Hokage for a long time, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 days. When Unfei Hiruzen became Hokage, his heart began to be restless. It had not changed for so many years. He suddenly realized that the situation in front of him was an opportunity. If he let them all die here, and then he would take action to clean up the trouble, then he could legitimately become Hokage. The more he thought about it, the more he felt it made sense, and then he didn't take action, quietly waiting for the opportunity. When they were all dead, it would be his time to take action. Looking at his sealed arm, he didn't believe that so many Sharingans couldn't kill them all. On the other side, after being beaten back, the third Hokage spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was getting old. Even though he was very strong when he was young, time was not forgiving. There was a trace of determination in his eyes. If he sacrificed his life, there might be a chance for everyone. As a Hokage, isn't it necessary to have this spirit? Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and took out a scroll and began to make a seal. But Orochimaru was not as careless as he was at the beginning. He was already fighting with his life at risk. His eyes were paying attention to every move on the field. When he saw that the third Hokage was not in a good situation, he immediately asked Tobirama Senju to stop him. The second Hokage came on the water and directly used Flying Thunder God to stop the third Hokage. Not only that, but also left a deep wound on his body. The second Hokage couldn't help but close his eyes. This was not what he wanted to see, but he couldn't control his body now, so he could only keep this hatred in his heart. After Danzo saw all this through the telescope, he was almost overjoyed. Fight. The more intense the better. It would be best if both sides were injured and died. Seeing that the third Hokage's breath was gradually weakening, Tsunade quickly ran over, protected Yuanfei and Hiruzen, and hurriedly treated him. Hold on, I will save you. Unexpectedly, the third Hokage grabbed her hand directly. Don't waste your energy. I know the condition of my own body very well. Don't do such meaningless things. Do me a favor. Then he spread the scroll again, and Yuanfei and Hiruzen and Tsunade actually jointly performed the Shikigami sealing, and the price was naturally their lives. A ghost appeared from behind. When Orochimaru saw this ghost, he had a strong warning of danger in his heart. His animal instinct told him that this damn ghost could threaten his life. The ghost ignored everything and rushed straight to Orochimaru. He cut off his hands with a knife and then appeared directly behind the third Hokage. The seemingly light knife was full of danger. No one could stop the price of the seal of the Gao. Danzo naturally knew this ninjutsu. He knew that he should take action. He took up Urain Tojin and Yamanaka Kase to the place where they were fighting and arrived in a moment. At the same time, Sasuke and Naruto also arrived. Looking at the endless tragic scene in front of them, the two people were shocked. They had never seen such a level of battle. The surrounding houses were almost destroyed. It was simply a disaster. Naruto's mouth was a little knotted. Sasuke, why don't we go back? Sasuke glared at him. You came and you go. We are already here. If you go back so dejectedly, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Naruto also sighed. Why did he propose such a stupid thing in the first place? But there was no way. What he did had to be done anyway. The two approached quietly, but saw some familiar figures in front of them. The third Hokage was lying down in a miserable state. At the same time, a man wearing a green robe and blindfolded stood in front of the third Hokage. He gradually unlocked his sealed arm. This arm had been sealed for many years. Although it had sealed Orochimaru's hands, Danzo wanted to kill Orochimaru completely. Sasuke looked at the arm full of Sharingan and suddenly felt sick in his stomach. It was not because the arm was disgusting, but because he could not accept the miserable situation in front of him. On that arm, there were eyes of his own people. This man deserved to die. Chapter 27. It turns out there was a conspiracy back then. I also want to be a rebel. How tragic was the genocide of the clan back then? Perhaps only the Uchiha clan themselves could know. At that time, Sasuke was still an ignorant child. Looking at his brother's back, his complex emotions began to change. How much he expected at the beginning, how much resentment he had now. But until he saw Danzo's arm full of Sharingan, his heart began to turn upside down. His intuition told him that what happened back then was definitely not that simple. Moreover, Uchiha Itachi was a member of the Enbu at that time, and the two people next to this guy were dressed very much like Anbu. Anyone who was not a fool could think that there was definitely something fishy about this matter. Could it be that his brother accepted the order of this guy to destroy the Uchiha clan? Once this idea was formed, it lingered in his brain. It turned out that his intention was not to disappear out of thin air, but to be persecuted by others, by the people of Konoha. His eyes were red, and he knelt on the ground in pain. Naruto, who was beside him, hurried up, but was frightened to take a step back when he saw his scarlet eyes. Are you okay? Sasuke smiled sadly. How could I be in trouble? My family has been wiped out by Konoha. What else can happen to me? Naruto didn't know what Sasuke was talking about. He was confused, but he vaguely knew that there must be some misunderstanding. Let's leave here. It's too dangerous here. Sasuke looked up at the sky, trying not to let his tears flow. The things about his parents, his brother's departure, and the persecution of his clan members, scene after scene appeared in front of him. Thousands of words turned into one sentence. You're right, I should leave. Then he didn't care about Naruto at all, and used all his strength to leave. No matter how he was behind, he didn't turn his head back. At this moment, he suddenly had a new understanding that his brother was wronged. It turned out that there had been misunderstandings for so many years. We two Uchiha brothers will definitely destroy your damn Konoha. Naruto was still scratching his head, and he had to leave here alone. After Orochimaru's hands were sealed, the impure world reincarnation technique could no longer be maintained. The first and second Hokage said hello to everyone, then turned into fragments and disappeared. Danzo was always a villain who succeeded. The guy he disliked was going to die in front of him. What could be more pleasant than this? But after all, people in their position still need some face, and they said to the third Hokage with false feelings, "Don't worry, I will help you clean up the sect. Even after you leave, Konoha will still have me. Go with peace of mind." The third Hokage still has a breath left. If he is not more open-minded, he will probably be pissed off to death by this damn guy in the next second. Even so, he looked at Danzo with hatred, but he was too weak to speak. Facing Orochimaru who had lost both hands, he was too confident. A ninja without both hands, no matter how powerful he is, what can he do? Orochimaru knew that he was doomed. If he continued, he would definitely be killed by the three guys in front of him. Especially when he saw the Sharingan on his arm, he lost his confidence. He turned around and ran without any hesitation. But how could Danzo let him escape like this? He used wind blades to chase him from behind, and at this time Kabuto also rushed over to support him. But when he saw Danzo, he was also stunned. In his impression, there seemed to be no such person, and there were so many Sharingan on his arm. He simply started to run away, and the two ran happily one after the other. But Danzo was not in a hurry. He still understood the principle that a desperate dog will jump over the wall. He was now grinding Orochimaru's strength. After consuming all his strength, he could easily kill him. But he didn't expect that something unexpected happened in the middle of the journey. After chasing to a critical place, a Burain Tojin suddenly shouted, "Danzo, be careful." Just after he finished speaking, a strong explosion sounded, and Danzo was thrown directly into the sea of fire. The thick smoke choked them so much that they couldn't open their eyes. The two shouted anxiously, "My lord, are you okay, sir?" At this time, Danzo's figure appeared behind the two of them, and one of the Sharingan on his arm was missing. He looked at the two of them with a gloomy face. "I'm fine, but no one is allowed to tell anyone about what happened today, understand? Such a shameful thing must not be publicized, especially in his current situation. If such a shameful thing happened when he succeeded as Hokage, he would definitely not accept it." The two of them also lowered their heads quickly and said with some guilt, "We will keep it a secret." Danzo reluctantly nodded, but he kept thinking in his heart, who exactly buried so many detonating tags here, and judging from the explosion, the power must be at least hundreds of them, which is completely a way to kill the pursuers. Orochimaru, who was fleeing in front, was also stunned after hearing the explosion. He looked at Kabuto in surprise, but the latter's confused eyes told him that he was not the one who did it. But no matter who did it, as long as it could help him escape, it was a good thing. After leaving Konoha village, he ran in the forest for more than half an hour. Seeing that no one was chasing him, he stopped and breathed a sigh of relief. Orochimaru said bitterly, "Damn old thing, you actually gave your life to seal my hands. I will return to Konoha sooner or later." At this time, a mocking voice suddenly came from above. "A guy without even hands is still rampant here. Who is he?" Orochimaru's nerves were now very tense, and any slight movement would cause him to react strongly. Sasuke jumped down from the tree, and his cold eyes surprised the two of them. They had seen this kid before, but he was not like this now. At this moment, Sasuke's eyes were full of hatred. "If I hadn't helped you escape, you would never have been able to escape successfully today." Orochimaru suddenly realized that the detonating tag just now was planted by Sasuke. It turned out that when he just left, he knew that Orochimaru would definitely not be able to escape today. But in Sasuke's plan to destroy Konoha, Orochimaru is indispensable. Although this guy is annoying, the two have the same goal, which is to destroy Konoha. Thinking of the guy with Sharingan all over his arms, Orochimaru also understood instantly, thinking that Konoha is really harmful to people, and a disgusting smile appeared on his face. "Then do you want to cooperate with me? We can talk about our business later." Sasuke nodded in understanding. In this way, the two of them formed an alliance temporarily, and the figures of Sasuke, Orochimaru and Kabuto disappeared into the forest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. Give the third generation 2 punches, Jiraiya spits. In Konoha, everyone surrounded the third Hokage. Their eyes were very sad. Although Jiraiya and Tsunade were not young, the more this happened, the more sad it was to see the people who had left. Yuanfei Hiruzen looked at the people around him, and seemed to see his young self following the second Hokage on the battlefield, and saw the young Sannin, and then his wife and son. The last person who appeared in front of him was the apprentice who made him worry, Orochimaru, but there was no anger or sadness on his face, only a hint of relief. As a Hokage, he had carried too much, and now dying was not a relief. Jiraiya held the third Hokage's hand tightly. Hold on, you will be fine. Tsunade was also treating him without giving up, but even so, the effect was still very slim. Although Danzo teased Orochimaru, he was still very happy when he came back to see the third Hokage who was about to die, but he still had to pretend. We have known each other for so many years, but I didn't expect you to leave so soon. However, this is the fate of ninjas. I will help you protect Konoha. Everyone was disgusted by his tone. After all, the third Hokage is still alive. Does he think he is the fifth Hokage? Danzo said to the others. I know you are very sad, but the dead cannot be resurrected, and life and death cannot be reversed. You should be patient, and accept the change. You are all the elites of Konoha, and we will need you to work harder in the future. But at this moment, suddenly, a discordant voice broke his speech. Who said life and death cannot be reversed? Let me try. Danzo frowned. He hated being interrupted when he was talking. He looked in the direction of the voice, and saw that it was a child. His face was even worse. Shan Zanfeng, who was standing next to him, hurried out. Where did the child come from? Go away quickly. This is not a place for you to come. This guy was Takashi Shin. He didn't listen to Shan Zanfeng's words at all. He flashed and came directly in front of the third Hokage. Yamanaka Feng was completely stunned. As an elite ninja of the Yamanaka clan and a member of the Root, he had seen all kinds of storms, but at this moment he was also stunned. He looked back with some difficulty, as if to ask, how did this guy get there? Danzo couldn't help but narrow his eyes. It seemed that this kid was not as simple as he thought, and asked in a deep voice, who are you? Takashi Shin, a third-class ninja of the ninja school. Hearing that this kid turned out to be a ninja, he was relieved immediately. He thought he was a very powerful character. No wonder he didn't know him. Since you are a ninja, you should help those Konoha villagers who are in trouble. What are you doing here? You can't help. Get out of here quickly. Takahashi asked back. Can't help? I don't think so. Isn't there a person lying here? Do you need help? Then he pointed his finger at the third generation Hokage, who was about to die. Jiraiya's eyes suddenly lit up, and he grabbed Takahashi's shoulders. What do you mean? Can you save the third Hokage? If nothing unexpected happens, yes. But at this time, Tsunade cast a questioning look. As a senior medical ninja who has been in the industry for decades, she has a lot of say in this aspect of treatment. The third Hokage's current injuries are not even cured by herself. How can a little genin cure it? Just think that this kid is fooling around. Danzo also said with a bad face. If you dare to come here to play tricks on us, I will let you know the seriousness of the consequences. Everyone present is a famous ninja. If you fool around here, you know the rules of ninjas. However, Takahashi's reaction to this serious attitude was much more easygoing. It's very simple. If I can't cure it, you can do whatever you want to me. Anyway, you can't cure the third Hokage now, so let's try it out. This sentence is like a knife, stabbing Tsunade's heart, as if telling the incompetence of medical ninjas. Looking at Takahashi with a bad face, it seems to say that you kid better have some real skills, otherwise, you will be in trouble. Takahashi waved his hand to let everyone disperse. His treatment method was very bloody. Yes, it was very bloody. Because just when he was protecting Hinata, his traveling frog suddenly came back and brought him a medical skill called Please Don't Die. This skill sounds kind, but his treatment method is not kind at all. It can even be said to be very cruel, and the required conditions are also quite extreme. It can only be used when someone is in a completely dying state. That is to say, if someone on the side has lost the ability to fight and wants him to recover quickly, but the injury is not dead, he must be beaten to a dying state artificially and then treated. It can be said to be very bloody. Seeing that the third generation in front of him still had a breath, it was obvious that he did not meet the conditions for the use of Please Don't Die. In front of everyone, he punched the third generation heavily in the stomach. Jiraiya, who wanted to drink some wine to relax, spit it all out in one mouthful. Tsunade's 2 eyes almost popped out, and she rolled up her sleeves, as if to make Takashi regret bragging to them. But she was stopped by Jiraiya. I believe this kid. His eyes exude a kind of confidence. If he is not sure, he will not do this, unless he is a complete idiot. Tsunade muttered to herself. What if he is really a fool? Everyone turned their eyes back to the third generation. The punch just now not only confused the others, but the third generation of Hokage was the most confused. What sin did I commit to be hit hard by others when I was about to die? For the first time in decades, I felt like crying. But then Takashi began to perform a method that they could not understand at all. It took only a few minutes for the third generation of Hokage's breath to gradually recover. After a while, the whole person was completely recovered. The whole process can be described as a miracle, and the most peculiar thing is that the third generation of Hokage's skin became very smooth. This is another effect of Please Don't Die. No matter who receives this treatment, the skin will become very tender and smooth, and even reflect light under the sun. Danzo was watching from the side, completely dumbfounded. What was going on? How could a dead guy come back to life out of nowhere and still be alive and kicking? The most important thing was who the hell was this damn kid? A genin? He was kidding. A person who couldn't even be cured by the legendary Sannin could be cured by a genin, which was just as outrageous as him being killed by a genin. Funny, he looked at Takashi with eyes that could spit fire, and said with gritted teeth, "You are really amazing, kid." Chapter 29 I'm not a saint, and I will not take the blame. Danzo wanted to eat Takashi in one bite. His dream of becoming Hokage was shattered. This damn kid could actually bring the dead back to life. He had never heard of such a human ninjutsu. The third Hokage was also shocked. Although he had fought on the battlefield for many years, he had never seen such a skill. He was particularly satisfied when he touched his smooth skin. He felt as if he was 10 years younger. Looking at Danzo on the side, he deliberately said loudly, "I feel that I can live at least another 30 years. It would have been better if he hadn't said this." After saying it, Danzo left here with a flick of his sleeve. This time, he not only exposed his trump card, but also failed to kill the third Hokage. It was a failure among failures. And all of this was to blame on that kid. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Yamanaka Feng and Utogen on the side didn't dare to say much, for fear that he would vent his anger on them again. They didn't want to become punching bags. Danzo's voice was a little cold, and so was his eyes. "I don't care what means you use, you must get all the information of that kid for me. If his background is clean, then recruit him. Although he just ruined my good thing, if this kind of strength joins our camp, it will definitely be of great benefit. And the most important thing is that the speed of that kid just now is even faster than my wind escape." Shanzang Feng also agreed with this sentence. He was guarding at the front just now. When Gyokyo flashed past him, he didn't even see his shadow. He was completely confused. After they left, Tsunade circled around the third Hokage to check, and even used her chakra to detect his body. As a result, no matter how she tossed, the third Hokage was indeed intact. She couldn't help it, so she grabbed Gyokyo and wanted him to explain it. It was too embarrassing that she couldn't understand it here with her decades of experience as a medical ninja. "Stinky boy, tell me quickly, how did you do it?" Gyokyo thought for a long time, but couldn't think of a suitable result, so he said casually, "Do you believe me when I say it's a bloodline limit?" Everyone's eyes changed. If that was the case, then it made sense. Even Takashi didn't expect that they believed his nonsense without hesitation. Because the deception was too smooth, he didn't know what expression he should make for a moment, so he had to turn his attention to the third generation. "Third generation, are you okay?" He shook his head, with a little sigh in his tone. The disciple is better than the master. K really didn't see you wrong. You are really amazing. I had already made up my mind to sacrifice for Konoha. The revolving lantern in front of me had already gone through more than half, but you pulled me back from hell. If I see the first and second generation Hokage in the future, I must brag about this matter to them. When these people heard this, they couldn't help but laugh out loud. Although Konoha was destroyed a lot, it was not a big problem overall, and did not affect the normal operation of daily life. Kakashi didn't arrive here until almost everyone had left. It turned out that he was stopped by a large group of people on his way here. Before Orochimaru attacked the village, he had asked others to confirm the top combat power in the animal husbandry. As the White Fang of Konoha, Kakashi was naturally the top priority. Moreover, his symbol was too obvious, and his bright white hair was stopped by countless people. When he arrived here, he was relieved to see that no one was in danger of life. He felt that he might have overestimated Orochimaru. Seeing that nothing happened, the Toad boss said hello to Jiraiya and went back. Just when everyone thought that nothing was wrong, Naruto hurried over and said with a somewhat anxious look, "Teacher Kakashi, have you seen Sasuke?" Kakashi didn't know about Danzo's appearance, but asked back, "What happened?" Now things are a bit big. Naruto didn't dare to hide it and told Kakashi everything about their coming here. Even the third generation sighed when they heard this. Is this fate? No one can tell how much hatred the descendants of the Uchiha clan will have when they see their clan members' eyes focused together. After all, not everyone is Itachi. Kakashi was also a little helpless when he heard this. After all, seeing is believing, hearing is not. Seeing the real Sasuke, the thing gathered in his heart might have turned into a demon. If it was an ordinary person, it would be fine. A person with extremely high ninja talent still has strong hatred. Orochimaru is a vivid example. If there is another Sasuke, things will be even more difficult. However, these things are not what they can consider now. The first priority is to rebuild Konoha. Naruto was furious when he saw them like this. Are we going to give up Sasuke like this? He is a member of our Konoha. Others were embarrassed to speak, but Tsunade was not. She punched him on the head. Asshole, if you want to yell, why don't you look at where you are? The Hokage is still here, and you are talking nonsense here. Takashi was watching him quietly from the side. This was an incomprehensible friendship game. Sometimes he wondered if Naruto would still protect Sasuke like he does now if they were not brothers in their previous lives. And Naruto was a little angry when he saw Takashi indifferent. Hey, why don't you say anything? Sasuke is our classmate after all. Are you just going to watch him go astray like this? Takashi looked at him with a very strange look. You are a good person, but you put the blame on me? Don't think that everyone is as saintly as you. Takashi doesn't have this habit. Only he knows how painful he was before the system came. In response, he just said 8 words lightly. Konoha ninja, kill the rebel ninja. There was a smile on his face, but there was an unquestionable murderous aura in his tone. No one would doubt that he really killed Sasuke. Kakashi narrowed his eyes slightly. Takashi looked at him fearlessly and left fear in the eyes of everyone. This time he did not use flash, but left slowly. He had said to Gay before that there was a guy in their team who could kill several Jonin alone. He originally thought it was a joke, but now it seems that Gay should not be joking. Thinking of his favorite disciple, Kakashi sighed. This was also his responsibility. As a teacher, he had the obligation to find him back. At this time, news came from the Anbu. Hokage-sama, we found traces of Orochimaru and others in the woods outside the village. Should we pursue them? Chapter 30 Forest Chase. Kakashi was a little nervous after hearing the news. On the one hand, he was afraid that his disciple would disappear, and on the other hand, he was also afraid that he would be cruelly punished after being caught. He was very conflicted in his heart, but this conflict was quickly resolved. As a ninja, he must be decisive, and he was a strong man among ninjas, so he was naturally not a hesitant person. He made his own judgment in a moment. Sir Hokage, let our class go to find him. This is also my responsibility. The third generation nodded. But then he heard Kakashi continue. Our class is missing one person now. Can you send another helper? This made the third generation a little embarrassed. Now every Jonin is very busy. It is not good to spare some manpower. And Kakashi also saw his concerns and said slowly, I don't need a Jonin. Just let Takashi cooperate with us. Hearing that it was him, the third generation Hokage also showed an expression that was both unreasonable and reasonable. Okay, but you have to discuss this with Gai first. After all, he is his student. Kakashi smiled lightly. This matter was too easy. He had 1,000 ways to get Matt Gai to lend him to Takashi. He was too familiar with his old friend. Takashi saw the damage on the street, thought about it, and decided to help. To be honest, he didn't have much affection for Konoha village, because in this world of the survival of the fittest, feelings are so fragile, especially in this place without parents, and lack of a sense of belonging. Only when he was within it could his heart be restored, but seeing the miserable situation around him, he felt a little sympathetic. Now his body is very strong, and the effect of the super soldier serum is indeed powerful. A person can carry hundreds of kilograms of things without even breathing, which makes people around him stunned. After working for more than an hour, a familiar voice suddenly sounded behind him. Takashi, I've also heard about your deeds just now. You actually saved the third Hokage. You're really amazing. But now there's something very young that needs your help. He was fine at first, but the more he listened, the more things seemed wrong. He turned around and saw a figure he didn't want to see. Kakashi greeted him very calmly. This made Takashi speechless. He never expected that Kakashi would go through the process with his teacher and directly stepped over him. He walked in front of the two with a little helplessness. Teacher Kakashi, are you here for Sasuke's matter? Mike praised him generously. You are indeed right in guessing. Then I don't need to say more about what will happen next. Can I refuse? Probably not, because this is the order of the Hokage. Then Takashi packed up his luggage and appeared in the woods outside Konoha with Kakashi and the others. Ever since he said that, Naruto has been hostile to him and ignored him. But he doesn't care about this kind of thing. But to be honest, Takashi actually likes such a team. Because Kakashi is quite strong, and other ninjas can't compare to him in terms of comprehensive ability, Takashi doesn't need to worry about him. Naruto is the same. He has the 9 tails in his body, so he can't die no matter what, so he doesn't need to worry about it. As for Sakura, for some reason, Takashi hates this person very much. He feels that this guy is very pretentious. Even if he dies, he won't care. So such a team makes him very worry-free. On the contrary, a team like Mike K gives him a headache. He can't leave anyone behind, which makes him a little restrained. As they keep moving forward and chasing forward, the remnants begin to block them. Orochimaru is not a fool. He knows the strength of Konoha. Since he escaped in a panic, they will definitely not give up. The strength of the Anbu is also known. They left a lot of ambushes all the way up to stop them. But the remaining sound ninjas were wiped out by them in an instant. But at this moment, 3 guys covered in black blocked their way. They were Orochimaru's proud subordinates. They all opened the Zain state at this moment. Because they were facing the famous Konoha White Fang, they dared not relax at all. Kakashi looked at the 3 guys in front of him, and could tell that one of them was a power type, and the one who looked like a spider should be a long range one, and the woman holding the flute might be a interference type. He couldn't let these 3 guys drag their feet. Then he looked at Takashi. Orochimaru, who had lost both hands, was definitely not the opponent of this kid. With that strength and terrifying speed, even he would have a headache. But he still said something to provoke him. Can I trust you? Naruto was very passionate and patted his chest to guarantee. I will definitely bring that bastard Sasuke back and beat him up. But Takashi didn't buy it at all and said indifferently, you can choose not to believe it. Faced with this bachelor's attitude, Kakashi was also a little helpless. He always felt that Takashi had a kind of old-fashioned temperament that didn't match his age, and he was also very stubborn. There was nothing he could do to him. Then I'll leave the rest up to you. I'll stop these 3 people. You guys keep going. Takashi is the type who goes with the flow. He doesn't like to be defeated. It's okay to negotiate, but if you want to threaten, then the situation is very different. The 3 of them chased out of the forest. There was a large open space in front of them, and a white-haired boy was standing in the middle of the open space, as if he was waiting for the arrival of the few people. He looked at the few people with no emotion, as if he was looking at a few dead people. Are you guys the pursuers that Lord Orochimaru mentioned? It seems that Konoha really has no one to use, and they actually sent a few little ghosts. They are really underestimated. The plan to destroy the wood industry was also known, and it was originally thought that people from other villages might also chase out, but it was unexpected that only these unknown guys would come, and this white-haired man was the parasitic body that Orochimaru was most optimistic about, Kimimaro, whose bloodline limit was the corpse bone vein, a super talented boy who could assassinate cage-level figures at a young age. It's just a pity that at such a young age, he has a terminal illness. In Takashi's opinion, this is because he is too outstanding and God is jealous of his talent. Because he didn't get the script of the protagonist, Kimimaro is also a tragic character. From a personal point of view, he doesn't hate Kimimaro, but now he can only sigh. He said to Sakura and Naruto, "Be careful of this guy, he is very powerful." Naruto snorted coldly at Takashi's words. "If you are timid, don't say that others are powerful." After hearing this, Kimimaro directly locked his eyes on Naruto. Chapter 31 Genius Boy Kimimaro. There is a saying that goes, if you don't commit suicide, you won't die. If a celebrity doesn't get the protagonist's script, he probably won't survive the early stage. At the current level, if he doesn't burst out the power of the Nine Tails, it will take Kimimaro a few minutes to defeat Naruto. Although this guy didn't fight a few battles in the plot, he was basically a bug-like existence in the early stage, but Takashi was not afraid of him. Speed and strength are his confidence. Kimimaro burst out with bone spurs all over his body, and 2 piercing knives appeared in his hands. He rushed towards the 3 people at a speed as fast as stepping on the air. This kind of physical skill is not inferior, even if it is suitable for Zeroli to fight head-on, and the bones all over his body are very hard and sharp, making people dare not compete with him head-on. While running, he suddenly shot a lot of bullets at them, which is the ability of the corpse bone vein. The corpse bone vein's 10 fingers penetrate bullets. Seeing this, Naruto directly used the multiple shadow clone technique, but 7 or 8 of them were broken in the blink of an eye. Then he let the remaining clones surround Kimimaro, but his expression did not change at all, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. A trifle. The dance of the corpse veins willow. Bone spurs burst out from all over his body, and he spun wildly like dancing. He used a series of continuous attacks with bones in a gentle and non-excessive physical technique. The attacks of multiple shadow clones were easily broken, and Sakura was even more numb, because she didn't know anything at all. This was the most annoying thing. Takashi didn't even have the nerve to say that this was just a burden. This level of attack could not stop Kimimaro at all. In the blink of an eye, he was killed. He pulled out an ancient sword from his left arm as a weapon, and with precise and soft speed, he made multiple continuous attacks. His movements were chic and beautiful, and even Takashi couldn't help but nod. Even in the entire ninja world, it is a very rare weapon system move. Takashi made a tentative move and reached forward in an instant. However, due to the bone spurs bursting out from this guy's body, he could not accurately aim at the position to attack effectively, but this circle still caused him a lot of damage. Kimimaro, who was knocked away, suddenly looked gloomy and refocused his eyes on the bridge. It seemed that this guy was the tough bone of the 3 people. As long as he was killed, there would be nothing to fear. However, the speed just now made him a little scared. Suddenly, bones grew on his body, more and more. You force me to do this. Corpse bone vein, Karamatsu dance. This move uses the blood limit to make the body grow dozens of bones. In close combat, while having high defense to withstand the impact, it can also hit the opponent. Its defense is extremely strong. If Takashi remembered correctly, when Zeroli opened the first gate of the 8 gates of ninjutsu, there was no damage at all, and even the use of the form Lion Hoa was useless. Naruto was completely numb when he saw this scene. He was invulnerable to swords and guns, and could not be invaded by water and fire. What's the point of fighting? His attack didn't work at all, and he looked completely at ease, and didn't show his true strength at all. At this time, he finally got a little anxious, and placed his hope on Takashi. Hey, can you say something? You can't just leave like this, while looking at Sasuke in front of you. Takashi thought for a moment, and said in a slightly cold tone, You two here will only delay my attack, and I have to split my attention to take care of you. Just now was just a warm up for this guy. If the real killer move is used, I guess you won't even have a chance to escape. Naruto wanted to refute, but when he saw Kimimaro with a calm face not far away, he gave up the idea. He nodded angrily. Sakura, let's go back to help Kakashi sensei. The two left here with some complicated eyes, but this was Takashi, and he didn't care about their feelings. If Kimimaro was in a state of complete victory, he might not be much weaker against the three ninjas. Although he still had the confidence to defeat him, it was always better to be careful. After the two left, Takashi was finally able to exert his full strength. There's no need for us to hide anything, as we both know our own strengths. Kimimaro seemed to think so too. In an instant, he released his cursed seal and his aura instantly became stronger. The two planned to decide the outcome with one move. Kimimaro put his hands on the ground, and sharp bones grew out of the ground one after another to attack Takashi. The speed was extremely fast and the number was extremely large. The bones basically covered the entire ground, like a forest of bones. This was a comprehensive attack, and it was hard to defend against. This was his strongest ninjutsu, the corpse bone vein, the dance of early ferns. Takashi's painting of light energy particles flew in the sky. Looking at this terrifying attack, he was also a little scared. Although this move was easier for him to dodge, if he encountered a group of enemies, this move could definitely be called a killer. In addition to dodging, he could only use extremely powerful force to flatten all the bone spurs. Takashi slowly fell in midair, but he didn't dare to relax at all, because Gaara had already hidden in these bones, and condensed his hand into the strongest spear, waiting to attack his opponent. Although his body had been strengthened, he didn't think his body could be stronger than Gaara's sand shield. Kimimaro had already merged with this forest of bones, and could shuttle freely in it. This sneak attack was really hard to defend against. However, he didn't know that Takashi had already seen through his actions, and was just luring him into the trap. He deliberately stood in front of a relatively large bone spur, waiting for the rabbit. Sure enough, Kimimaro was fooled, and quietly appeared behind him, with bones condensed into a spiral spear in his hand. If hit by this move, no matter who it was, they would be killed on the spot. Takashi felt a chill behind him, and dodged directly, using the 8-foot mirror to directly reflect the sky, looking down at the forest of bones from high above. Kimimaro was suddenly shocked. No, he was fooled. But when this thought came to him, it was too late to run. Even if he was fast, how could he be faster than light? Takashi was in the air, posing like a rock spreading its wings. Come on, it's my turn, Yasakuni no Magatama. Countless shining points of light, like a meteor shower, smashed the bone forest to pieces. Kimimaro failed to dodge in time, and was hit hard. There were flashing points of light all over his body, and his body, which was already at the end of its strength, became even weaker, and he spat out a mouthful of black blood. You are very strong. Losing to you is not a shame to Lord Orochimaru's cultivation. Kill me. But Takashi had a sly smile on his face, with a somewhat wretched temperament, and looked at Kimimaro. Feeling this strangeness, Kimimaro's eyes began to become a little strange. What are you doing? Don't come over here, damn it. Chapter 32. Let Kimimaro go, and meet a super strong woman. After a moment, Kimimaro was reborn. He couldn't believe that this guy not only didn't kill him, but also saved him with a miraculous method. He stood up and moved his body. Suddenly, he felt that the feeling of weakness was gone. No matter how he jumped, he would not feel tired. He looked at Takashi in surprise. You cured my disease? In response, Takashi said, is this difficult? His rhetorical question stunned Kimimaro. Isn't it difficult? Not difficult. Why has he been tortured by this disease for more than 10 years? But this is not important. He looked unfriendly. They were obviously enemies. Why did he save himself? Is there any conspiracy? This is the subconscious thinking of a person who grew up in a dark environment. Even if you heal me, I will still defeat you. I will never let you interfere with Lord Orochimaru and others. I will definitely stop you. Go. I will definitely stop you. What did you say? Kimimaro seemed to be unable to believe his ears. He had just fought so fiercely with himself. then healed himself, just to let him go? Are you serious? Takashi nodded very affirmatively. In fact, Takashi did not intend to kill Kimimaro. Whether from an emotional or other point of view, he sympathized with this tragic character. He felt that the two had some common points, and the most important thing was that he did not want to kill Orochimaru. If there was anyone who could maintain the peace of the ninja world, it might be these strong men. If it came down to it, who could promote the progress of the ninja world, then I'm afraid Orochimaru would definitely be the first to bear the brunt. Others believed in power, believed in tailed beasts, and even believed in illusions. But Orochimaru was different. This guy believed in science. After the battle, what was left in the world? Only progress. If Orochimaru was killed, I'm afraid that a lot of precious space for progress would be lost. Real scientists are all crazy, and he is no exception. Moreover, this guy's strength has been wasted by more than half. Even if he was left alone, he would never be able to stir up any big waves. It's better to keep this guy. Since Takashi became stronger, he has had a high level goal. He not only wants to become stronger, but also very strong. So strong that he can change the pattern of the ninja world and even the world. Orochimaru is just the candidate he has his eyes on. He lowered his head and said to Kimimaro, "Go back and tell Orochimaru that he is very talented. Don't let hatred blind your eyes. It was not Konoha that destroyed his parents, but the entire corrupted ninja world. If he wants to change the facts, he might as well contact me. And you are already a dead person. You have dedicated everything about yourself to Orochimaru. Now you are a free man and can decide your own destiny." After saying this, he left casually. This sentence is a bit too much, as if it opened the locks that bound him for many years. He worked so hard to become stronger, just to get the recognition of Orochimaru, and dedicate everything he has to the fanatically respected master, and all of this is to make himself exist. Just now, he experienced death and resurrection. For the first time, he felt that he was not Kimimaro with the curse seal. His thoughts returned to the little boy of the Kaguya clan. He was Kimimaro of the Kaguya clan. He walked towards Orochimaru in a daze. Takashi rushed back to the direction of Kakashi and the others. He was not worried about Sasuke. That guy would not be killed no matter what. As for Sasuke's desire to destroy Konoha, Takashi just laughed. Since he wanted to find his brother to avenge Konoha together, when he wanted to destroy Konoha, I guess his brother might be the first to disagree. I have paid so much to protect this place, and you, a loser, actually want to destroy it? Takashi went all the way back to Kakashi. Looking at Takashi, who returned empty-handed, they also sighed. After all, facing such an opponent, it is good to be able to get away. Chasing Orochimaru is not realistic at all. They didn't expect to meet such a tough guy. It seems that they still underestimated Orochimaru's strength. It was already evening when they returned to Konoha. Except for Takashi, the other three were in a very low mood. After separating from them, he found a barbecue restaurant and walked in, intending to treat himself well. After all, using "please don't die" twice in a row still consumed a lot of physical strength, and also mental strength. He ordered more than a dozen plates of meat. The increase in physical strength caused his appetite to grow rapidly. The people here were all sitting in groups of 3 or 2, and occasionally there were shared tables. The business was very hot, and only Takashi was alone. Just when he was eating happily, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, and sat directly opposite him. He was holding a pot of wine in his hand, exuding a strong smell of alcohol. He was just about to look up, to see who was the blind man who disturbed his elegant mood for dinner. As a result, he looked up, and saw a very terrifying murder weapon, before he saw the person. It took a lot of effort to move his eyes away, and then he found that the person sitting in front of him was Tsunade, and at this moment she was looking at Takashi with a very unfriendly expression. "Have you seen enough, you pervert?" Takashi cleared his throat to hide his embarrassment. "What's the matter, Tsunade-sama? Now is private time. My enjoyment of food should not affect other things, right?" Tsunade said nothing, staring at Takashi. "How did you do what you did during the day? I have studied medical ninjutsu for decades, and I have never seen such means as yours. If you leave it to me, no matter what conditions you give, just ask. Remember, anything is fine." After saying this, He winked playfully. It must be said that, although he is several dozen years old, his appearance is almost the same as that of a young girl, and his figure is even more terrifying. But soon he found that there was no desire in Takashi's eyes, which made Tsunade feel a little bored. He originally thought that he could tease this little guy and get some words out of him. As a result, no matter how she asked, Takashi simply avoided her and just focused on eating the barbecue in front of him and did not intend to answer any questions. Tsunade was so angry that she slapped the table hard and even the plate was shaken up, which also attracted the attention of other customers in the store. But she didn't care about that at the moment. If she was in a bad mood, she would not be happy at all. She looked at Takashi fiercely. Let me have a competition. If you win, I will never bother you again. But if you lose, you must tell me the mysterious ninjutsu that saved the third generation today. I'm a very reasonable person and will never cheat. Even the others couldn't listen to this. It was obviously you who had been forcing him. You wanted something, but you wanted to use force. How could this be reasonable? Chapter 33, Forced 50 to 50, All-Round Player. She originally thought that Takashi would not dare to accept the challenge. No matter how strong this guy was, he was just a teenager. After all, she was a famous Konoha seinen for many years and had some reputation. But Takashi's reaction disappointed Tsunade. Well, as long as I win, you won't bother me again, right? She didn't expect Takashi to agree so readily, and there was no emotional ups and downs in his tone, as if victory was in sight. This attitude aroused Tsunade's competitive spirit even more. I thought to myself, I'll let you see how powerful I'm in a while. The Konoha Seinen is not a name for nothing. The two found a vacant building site. This place has been fenced off. It was the place that was damaged by Orochimaru's attack before. The damaged buildings have been demolished, but now there is no time to build. When the two came here, Tsunade spoke frankly and asked directly. Tell me, how do you want to compete? If Takashi said to compete in speed, this woman would probably turn hostile and shook her head helplessly. Forget it, you tell me. Tsunade smiled every day. You are a gentleman, then let's compete in strength. Takashi felt a little annoyed. Although he had already guessed that it would be a contest of strength, he still couldn't help but sigh at the barbarity of this woman after hearing this. Because Tsunade's strength is strength, what else can she compete in if not this? If it is a speed competition, she can't even see Takashi's taillights. If it is a treatment competition, the please don't die skill she performed today completely opened her eyes. So apart from these things, only strength can be used. However, this does not necessarily mean that Takashi will definitely lose. In a competition, the rules must be followed. Then Tsunade moved a solid wooden block and placed it in the middle, with a sly smile on her face. Let's have an arm wrestling competition. It's simple and clear, and it's fast. He had long thought that this woman might be shameless, but he didn't expect her to be so shameless. He couldn't help but think of the situation when the Raikage and Tsunade competed and were almost broken. Although he is very strong now, it is mostly given by the ability of the fruit. In terms of pure physical strength, apart from the super serum, there is not much evolution, and he doesn't know if it can work. However, he turned to think of Captain America's so-called 50 to 50 strength. No matter who it is, as long as they fight against Captain America who has been injected with super soldier serum, they will automatically reduce their strength and force him to be 50 to 50. I don't know if this effect will happen after I have been injected. The two stood away from each other, and Takashi held her hand. It must be said that it was very delicate and soft. It is hard to imagine that such a hand can burst out with such violent power. Tsunade's eyes were full of fighting spirit. She must get that mysterious ninjutsu. Takashi took out a coin from his pocket and threw it directly into the sky. After continuous flipping, the moment it fell on the ground, both of them burst out their own chakra. At the beginning, Takashi was suppressed by the strange force. Tsunade saw this scene and couldn't help showing a proud look on her face. In terms of strength, she would eventually suppress him. She had seen the result of her victory, but she found something wrong after a few seconds. Although Takashi was suppressed by the force, he was very tenacious. Every time he was suppressed to a certain extent, he would rebound. Not only that, every time he was suppressed, the rebound force would be stronger. Seeing this situation, Tsunade didn't dare to suppress him anymore, and used her maximum strength. For a while, Takashi's hand was pressed less than 1 centimeter away from the plane. Don't struggle, victory will definitely belong to me. That's not necessarily true. What if? However, Takashi's words, what if, really what if, his hand actually opened and slowly slowed down. Tsunade looked like she had seen a ghost. Obviously, the hand was very close, but she couldn't suppress it. Damn, what's going on? However, Takashi still looked shaky, unable to win or lose, and the two of them persisted for 5 minutes. Finally, Tsunade took the initiative to speak. No more competition. No more competition. It's really boring. You are such a weird guy. You can't be defeated. Even if you say you have no power, you say you are so powerful, but you lose your power at the critical moment. You are such a weird guy. Forget it. If you don't want to learn, then don't learn. Tsunade took her bottle of wine and walked away angrily, but after walking 2 blocks, she suddenly remembered it and smiled evilly. Although I can't let you teach me, can't I learn it secretly? I don't believe there is any ninjutsu that I can't do. I'll see if you try a few more times. You can figure out some tricks by yourself. The next day, Takashi was called to the Hokage's room. What happened again? The way to the Hokage's room was almost fluent these days, and he would be called every few days. When he came this time, he met Tsunade at the door again. For some reason, he suddenly had a bad feeling that this woman seemed to be up to something again. Third Hokage, what do you want to talk to me about? The third Hokage looked at Tsunade. This time it's not me who wants to talk to you about something, but she wants to talk to you about something. Konoha wants to set up a medical class, and Tsunade will be the head teacher. She specifically asked you to join her class. He didn't expect this. Takashi's expression now was completely like I'm already in someone else's class. How can you do this? The third Hokage's face was even uglier, as if he was saying that she was the granddaughter of the first Hokage, and there was nothing a person with connections could do. The two of them played a game of eye contact, and in the end Takashi was defeated by this person with connections, but she didn't completely fail. Failed but not completely failed. This wave was a classic. After their tug of war like constant pulling, they finally decided to let Takashi take on multiple roles, serving as a student of the medical class in class 3 at the same time, and from time to time he might have to guest star as a helper of class 7. So this is called multitasking. The third Hokage had no way to deal with this. They were all capable men under his command, and they were all related to him. It would be difficult not to satisfy the people he specifically asked for. In addition to Takashi, there was another person who joined Tsunade's medical team. He originally thought that this person was Sakura, but he never thought that the person who signed up was Hinata. When he saw this figure he had been looking forward to day and night, he suddenly felt that it was not so bad. This was also recommended by Kurenoi Yuhi. Although Hinata has the Byakugan and her strength is not too weak, because of her personality, it is recommended that he work in the medical field. This also made Takashi full of energy. That's right, he had to give some rewards. You can't let the horse run, and not let the horse eat grass. The third Hokage looked a little excited, and a smile flashed across his face that only he could feel. Chapter 34 Heading to the Land of Rivers. The Chunin exam ended in a farce. In the end, not many people succeeded in being promoted to Chunin, but fortunately, Takashi was among them. But he was not very happy about it, because this title did not mean any improvement for him, but more trouble, like now. Tsunade came over with a smile, but Gyozai knew that it must be something bad after seeing her smile, and said as expected, seeing that you are training here alone, you must be very lonely. I will give you a good job. How about going to the Kingdom of Rivers? Takashi sighed. Sure enough, he had something to ask him. Although this guy was his nominal teacher, he would not come to see him unless there was something to ask him. Seeing his frown, Tsunade clamped his neck with her arms. Don't show that expression. I told you this is a good job. How can I lie to you? This time I asked you to go to the Kingdom of Rivers to investigate the mission. It's not difficult. There is just a poor family that forces the villagers to mine, and it's quite brutal. Just go and ask them to kill them, and it will be done. Takashi looked over with a very questioning look. If it was really that simple, why would he be asked to go there? Sure enough, there were follow-up matters. I have already accepted this mission before, but there is no way. I have some things to do now, and can't get away. I can only hand it over to you temporarily, but you also know that I don't have many people under me. There are only you and Hinata left. By the way, Sakura will go back this time. Please help me take care of them. No wonder he was asked to do this. It turned out that he was asked to be a babysitter. But since Hinata will also go, he can just be a babysitter. It is indeed a bit boring to train here alone every day. Since he was promoted to Chunin, he started training alone, and Might Guy also began to concentrate on training Lee and the others. It was not that he was partial, but Takashi no longer needed to participate in their training, because there was no improvement. After going back to pack up, Tsunade notified Sakura and Hinata to gather at Takashi's house. Tsunade was familiar with Takashi's house, and sat on the sofa. I thought it was her own home. Looking at the clean surroundings, Tsunade couldn't help but complain. How can you, a boy, keep your house so clean? There is no manliness at all. Men should be bolder. Takashi asked directly. Like Jiraiya-sensei? This sentence almost choked Tsunade, who was drinking. What nonsense are you talking about? Takashi also stopped at that, but his expression was very playful. At this time, Hinata and Sakura also came to the outside of the room. When they heard the knock on the door, they hurried to open the door. Knowing that they would be going on a long journey, Hinata changed her clothes to something lighter. Besides, it often rains in the country of rivers, so this kind of clothes is very easy to dry. However, Sakura was stunned when she heard about the mission. She originally thought that Tsunade would go with them, but she never thought that Takashi would lead the team alone. Looking at her unbelieving eyes, Takashi said unhappily, "If you don't trust me, you don't have to go. Hinata and I can complete the mission." Tsunade gave him an elbow directly. This mission was mainly to train his two useless disciples. If they were left behind, this mission would be meaningless. As for Takashi, he was just a full-time babysitter. After the three of them left the village, they didn't talk much. Takashi and Hinata exchanged glances with each other. Seeing Sakura would make her feel sick, which fully showed what it meant to say, that silence is better than words. Although there was no word, there was a pink atmosphere everywhere, and dog food was stuffed in one bite at a time. The Kingdom of Rivers is sandwiched between the Kingdom of Fire and the Kingdom of Wind, and is located in the south of the Kingdom of Rain. Many people mistakenly believe that the Kingdom of Rivers is actually part of the Kingdom of Rain, but in fact, these are two completely independent countries. The location of this mission is also very remote. It is the Jinshan Mountain in the Kingdom of Rivers, which is one of the few mining villages in the entire country. However, I don't know when this place has produced a very evil ritual, the funeral ceremony. The reason for this mission has to start with a villager. Because of this cruel atrocity, someone finally couldn't bear it. A man named Rokyasuke secretly ran out to ask for help from Konoha village. He traveled a long distance and finally reached his destination. It took a lot of effort to see the Hokage. The cause of the incident was also quite bizarre. Everything started with the forced intervention of a family called the Black Shovel family. Because this family intervened in this mining village, they used thunder to punish the people of the entire village. The leader of their family, Rega, liked to punish the villagers by burying the living, which is what is commonly known as burying alive. The long-term atrocities finally caused dissatisfaction among the villagers, but this dissatisfaction could only be turned into complaints. The Kingdom of Rivers itself was incapable of dealing with this family, and could only seek help from the Leaf Village. Takashi and others followed the instructions of the mission, and came to the vicinity of this mountain range. As soon as they arrived in the territory of the Kingdom of Rivers, it began to rain continuously, and the rain continued, with no sign of clearing up at all. Originally, they wanted to rest here, and then go find the guys from the Black Shovel family, but Rokyasuke was eager to save people. If they were delayed for a day, it might be possible that a few of their clansmen would be lost. If they stayed overnight, many people might die. Having said that, Takashi and others certainly couldn't rest anymore, so they had to rush to the mine construction site without stopping. When I went up, I found that all the workers were working in the heavy rain, and half of them didn't even have raincoats to keep them out of the rain. Some people often fell down because of the rain, but they were greeted with only cold whips. Seeing this scene, Hinata covered her mouth in surprise. She grew up in a greenhouse and couldn't imagine that there was such a terrible place. At this time, they suddenly saw a few guys carrying a coffin, and there was a thumping sound from it. The guy in the coffin was obviously still alive, so they wanted to bury him alive. Rokusuke couldn't help it, so he rushed up and pushed the others away. The coffin fell to the ground, the lid opened, and a living person came out of it. When the other supervisors saw that Rokusuke came back, they all came over with a grin. "I didn't expect you to have the courage to come back. Since you knocked over this coffin, let's start with you. Someone come and pack him up for me, and let Lord Leia practice for you. Then do you want to help me practice?" Takashi said softly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Crying Leia. Hearing Takashi's voice, the leader said subconsciously, "Whoever dares to speak nonsense, come and catch him." Takashi didn't even look at them and threw out a few shurikens from his hand, piercing directly into their eyebrows. This kind of scum is not enough to rest. Before the leader could react, the others had all died. Seeing that the other party was so powerful, he not only did not turn back, but also threatened. "I tell you, this is the territory of Lord Leia of the Black Shovel family. If you dare to kill me, Lord Leia will definitely bury you, and will never let you go." Takashi smiled. "That's really great, it's double happiness." Then a kune pierced his throat, and the blood looked particularly charming in the rain, diluting the black in the veins, and becoming extremely rosy. The noise here soon attracted the attention of other guards. The funeral ceremony of Master Leia was very sacred. If the funeral was delayed, the others would be responsible for it. They hadn't lived long enough, and they didn't want to be buried alive by that madman. So no one dared to slow down on weekdays, but today they were late. Something important must have happened. Nothing is more important than life. In a short while, dozens of people surrounded them, holding knives, guns, sticks, and clubs in their hands. They usually use these things to educate those workers who didn't obey their discipline. Facing these ordinary people, Takashi also remembered what Tsunade said to him before leaving, and he still had to train these two useless disciples. So he said directly and shamelessly, "Everyone, come on, these two women killed our companions, let's kill them." Sakura widened her eyes. What was going on? Looking back, Takashi didn't know when he had changed into the clothes of the dead ghost. If you didn't know, you would think he was one of them. How could the others know these things? They rushed towards Hinata and Sakura. The two of them were only genin now. Hinata was a little better and knew some Hyuga family's physical skills, such as soft fist. Sakura was even worse. She didn't know anything. She had just joined in the past few days. Since she saw Kimimero last time, she began to reflect on her own strength. She was too weak to let others protect her all the time. She had to stand up. But this brain circuit was very strange. Even Takashi couldn't figure it out. Why did you want to become a medical ninja if you wanted to become stronger? Isn't this pure and sick? However, even these dozens of ordinary people were not easy to deal with. These people were guys who relied on their reputation to bully the Black Shovel family for many years. Before that, they were also some famous gangsters and had some skills. Although it was impossible to compare with ninjas, it was not so simple to fight with dozens of people. You must be on guard against someone's dirty tricks, especially for those like them who had very little combat experience and were very likely to encounter dirty tricks in group battles. Fortunately, Hinata was there. Although her mentality was not particularly good, the Hyuga clan was a big family in the village after all, and the ninjutsu inherited by them was also very powerful. After adjusting their mentality, they could exert very powerful power. Sakura could only barely resist on the side, while Hinata was able to fight back appropriately. However, more and more people were outside, and soon there were nearly 100 people gathered. Takashi frowned. If this continued, something would happen, and he couldn't bear to see Hinata get hurt. You two come here. Yesterday, I saw where the weakness of the two of them fighting was, that is, they were too soft-hearted. On the battlefield, your kindness is cruel to your teammates. After fighting for a long time, no one was killed. The most seriously injured person was just a little skin injury, which did not affect the combat effectiveness at all. Gaokao called them behind him, and a sword of light energy flashed in his hand. It was the Shinkangan sword. He rushed into the team like a killing god. In an instant, more than 20 people fell to the ground. The rain washed the ground and turned it red. The others were terrified. No one dared to step forward. After all, no one wanted to mess with their own lives. The two women were also quite horrified. Although they knew that Gaokao was very powerful, they did not expect that he would attack so cleanly and cruelly. Although he was not a bloodthirsty person, those who were attacked by him would definitely not be able to stand up again. Just when the people around were hesitating whether to run or run, there was a sad cry. This cry was so touching that I thought his father had died. It was like a wolf howling. When the others heard this voice, they were immediately overjoyed. If they heard this voice on weekdays, it would be like seeing a ghost. But now this voice seems particularly beautiful. Someone shouted first. It's Master Rhaegar. Master Rhaegar is here. Let the master punish this lawless criminal and avenge our brother. But before the man finished speaking, a strong electric current suddenly appeared on the ground, burning him into charcoal, and his eyes rolled up, and he fell to the ground. But the current did not stop, but went straight to Takashi and the others. Takashi did not react to this attack, but just used the Shinkangan sword to draw a gully on the ground, and the current disappeared in an instant. The guy on the opposite side was obviously stunned, and he did not expect to be able to resolve his move so easily. He slowly showed his figure, wearing a hat, and his face could not be seen clearly. He also carried something like a sleeping bag on his back, but it was not big, but a child's voice came from it. The guy who came was Rhaegar, and the one carrying him was his partner, a child named Renmaru. The little guy stuck his head out. His eyes were red, very similar to the Byakugan, but not exactly the same. Hinata saw it and exclaimed, "Is this the red eye?" Sakura at the side was a little puzzled. She had only heard of the Byakugan before. What was this red eye? Takashi whispered, "This is also a strange bloodline limit, a kind of eye technique, but this power can be called the natural enemy of the Byakugan. It can see through objects and sense power. It can give timely warnings when it senses danger, but the most difficult thing is that it can use chakra to create images and interfere with the Byakugan. And in terms of observation, chakra has a stronger ability than the Byakugan." Sakura didn't expect that this little guy actually had such a strong power, and said nervously, "Then what should we do?" Takashi glanced at him. "It has nothing to do with me. I practice physical skills." Chapter 36, Traces of Sound Ninja. The sword in Lei Yang's hand is Lei Daoya, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Lei Yang is the first user of this sword. He officially looked at Takashi and the others, took off his hood, and was tightly bandaged all over his body. He had long green hair and sharp teeth. Basically, from the outside, he was a bad guy. He was one of the people who were let go by Mighty Day. He was lucky to survive. Leia looked at Takashi and the others, and tears suddenly flowed from his eyes. He looked compassionate, but there was a hint of cruelty at the corner of his mouth. This was his habit before killing people. As a former 7 ninja swordsman, he basically knew a very basic ninjutsu, which was the ninja lore of the mist hidden place. When the air was filled with thick fog, people could not see anything, and his figure was also hidden in it. His tongue gently licked his double blades, as if he was looking forward to the blood on them. Suddenly, he crossed his 2 swords to store electricity, and then spread his hands, and a large-scale slashing current appeared with a cross. Thunderfang. Gaokyo drove out of the sky, and blocked from the cloud sword. The effect was so accurate. Leia, only then did he realize that there was a Byakugan user in their passing team. "I didn't expect that there was someone using Byakugan among you. Unfortunately, here is your lifelong enemy, Ranmaru. Stop that guy." It can only be said that the Red Eyes are worthy of being the natural enemy of the Byakugan. After the activation time started, Hinata's Byakugan was almost ineffective. Not only that, because of the weather, there was no light reflection at all in the surroundings, and it was completely grey in the fog. Since he couldn't see, he simply stopped looking and closed his eyes directly. The Super Soldier Serum gave him a very sensitive hearing. The worst thing about Raiden is that there will be a harsh sound when it is released. As long as the direction is determined, it is easy to find that guy. Suddenly, a lightning-shaped dragon-shaped lightning attacked. This is the Thunder Dragon Tornado of Thunder Fang, which is also one of the most destructive moves of Raiden. But there is one thing. Although it is powerful, it takes too long to release. Takashi, holding the Tensang arrow, has arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye. Just as he was about to cut it with a knife, Ranmaru spoke one step ahead. Raiga, be careful that this guy will appear behind you and cut your lower back with a sword. Raiga was also shocked. If he hadn't been reminded, he would have become a corpse at this time. He suddenly burst out his powerful lightning attribute chakra, Ninjutsu Thunder Armor. He quickly retracted the two swords and then quickly merged them, summoning lightning to attach to his body, barely resisting the efficient attack. The strongest point of this move is that it can be turned into a defensive siege based on the powerful lightning, but it is useless to Takashi, who can transform into a light form. At this moment, he had no intention of resisting at all, so he could only quickly distance himself. The scene just now scared him. How could a monster have such a fast speed? His lightning release was already considered to be one of the fastest among the endurance ones. It was a competition of destructive power and speed, but this time he lost two others in terms of speed. The last time he experienced this terrifying speed was when that weird Konoha ninja, who was obviously weak, inexplicably killed several of his friends, and the 7 ninja swordsmen disappeared. The feeling of powerlessness at that time appeared in his heart again. Although Takashi was some distance away from him, he said slowly, "You kill yourself. I won't kill the kid behind you, but you definitely can't survive. You should be able to see from what happened just now that you are definitely not my opponent, even with the help of that kid." As a former 7 ninja swordsman, he can be said to be full of vigor and spirit, and how could he easily admit defeat? But when he wanted to attack again, he was hit by a light speed ray, which was so fast that he couldn't see clearly. Leia covered his shoulder. Blood was still dripping from it, with a look of disbelief on his face. He was clearly still in the thick fog. How did this guy find him? At this time, Takashi's voice came again. "I fought with you guys who can use these obscene ninjutsu before, so you naturally remember it. Once I get close to you, there will be marks on your body. Although others may feel it, in my eyes, you are like a 100,000 W light bulb, as bright as day. Your fog has no effect. You'd better surrender." He didn't expect that his proud moves had already been seen through by others. He used 2 swords, and now one of his arms was useless, so his fighting power was naturally greatly reduced. He was unwilling to be killed like this, and there were so many things waiting for him to do. He suddenly shouted to the people around him, "If you don't come to help, I will die. When someone else takes over this place, your source of income will be cut off." After hearing this, Takashi was stunned at first, and then quickly rushed back to Hinata and the others. Because he didn't know what was going on, he didn't dare to take the gamble. On his way back, he was constantly thinking, could it be that Raiga had any companions? He thought about it, but couldn't think of who they were. Suddenly, some white spiders appeared in the sky, which looked very disgusting. They ran towards them quickly, with ferocious fangs in their mouths. "Lord Raiga, we are here to help you." Then hundreds of shurikens were fired at them. Takashi used the Tensukimo sword to burst out a more powerful light, and then drew a long mark in the sky, directly knocking down hundreds of shurikens. Looking at the mark on their foreheads, Takashi immediately understood that they were guys from the Sound Village. Could it be that Orochimaru was involved in this? If he remembered correctly, Orochimaru had already gone to recuperate at this time, so how could he still be in this place? And he clearly remembered that Lei had no cooperation with the Sound Village. It seemed that his arrival might have changed the original world line. But even if these guys come to help, they are not afraid, because there are not many masters left in the whole Sound Village. There are a few who can be used, and they are always with Orochimaru. The others are just rotten tomatoes and potatoes. The one who came this time is the elite of the Wind Demon clan of Sound Village. It's Sachigumo, who is also one of the 3 masters. This place is also an important economic pillar for them now. If it collapses like this, it will be difficult to develop in the future. No matter what, we must not give up. Chapter 37 Arrival at Kaguya. But this guy's strength level is really a bit worrying. Spider is one of the 3 Jonins of the Fuma clan, and his endurance is somewhat similar to Kidomaru, except that he releases a large number of white spiders, but his overall level is much higher than Kidomaru, and he himself can't be cursed, so the difference is not a little bit. Reiga can't do anything, and it's even more useless for him to come. The joint attack of the 2 did not cause much trouble to Takashi at all, which made him worried just now, thinking that some strong man had come. But he didn't expect it to be this kind of stuff. The entire Fuma clan, if he remembered correctly, only had 3 Jonins in total. It was a family that had already declined, but wanted to rise very much, so it was bewitched by Orochimaru. It was quickly taken down by Takashi, and the previous glory was gone in the blink of an eye. Reiga was also a little helpless. The guy who came only had this strength, and he had no way to do anything. He wanted to say something, but his throat seemed to be blocked. Looking at the resentful expression in his eyes, it seemed that he was going to fight to the death. Seeing their expressions, Takashi said coldly, "Give up. Don't think about the fish dying and the net breaking. The fish will die, but the net will not break. I only used half of my strength in the battle with you just now. If you don't believe me, you can try it." Leia also snorted coldly. "Even if it's true, so what? The 7 ninja swordsmen will not surrender." "Oh, really? Then why didn't you even have the desire to fight back when you were crippled by our teacher K's father and walked away in disgrace?" This sentence made Leiya's face red. He was about to say something when he was stopped by Takashi. "You don't need to explain so much to me, and I don't want to hear your explanation, but now I have an opportunity here. Let's see if you can grasp it." Leiya showed a puzzled expression. "What conspiracy are you up to?" "I just want to give you a chance to live. Red Eyes is a very rare bloodline limit. It's a pity to disappear from this world with you. Although I don't want to kill this child, I believe he will never live alone after you die. You will die happily. Do you want this kid to be buried with you?" This sentence directly touched Leiya's soft spot. What he is most worried about now is Ranmaru. If possible, he wants to die for Ranmaru without letting him get hurt. Although they have a relationship similar to cooperation, their concern for each other is real. They can see their former shadows in each other. Leiya raised his head and let the heavy rain wash his face continuously for more than 10 minutes. Then he lowered his head and said slowly, "Okay, tell me what you want. If I can do it, I will cooperate with you." Takashi showed a hint of satisfaction on his face. Wouldn't it be over if he said so earlier? Since you have cooperated with the Fuma clan and know where they are, you don't need to worry about what happens after you take us there. But I have to tell you that you must disappear from my sight from now on. You are not allowed to return to the land of rivers, otherwise I will kill you. Hinata and Sakura behind him also heard this. Hinata was fine, but Sakura was unwilling. "How can you let him go? He has killed so many people and is a wanted criminal in all the major villages. If we don't kill him, our mission will fail." Takashi looked back at Sakura and pointed at Reiga. "You are awesome. You killed him. Don't worry, I will never interfere. But if you are killed, it has nothing to do with me." "You? What do you mean by me? Do you know what the so-called Sound Village of the Fuma group is? That is Orochimaru's secret base. Do you know what Orochimaru's secret base is? It is very likely Sasuke's hiding place, you idiot." Sakura was sobered up after being scolded like this, but she was still a little angry on her face. But when she heard Sasuke's name, it was obvious that a lot of anger disappeared, and she re-examined what she said before. This is also why Takashi hates Sakura, too double standard. However, Hinata completely believes in Takashi's choice. He must have his reasons for doing so. Takashi likes this way of thinking very much. When you are a slacker, you must have the awareness of a slacker, and don't always delay the thinking of the main C. However, Takashi didn't actually want to save Sasuke this time. Unless he knocked this guy out and took him back, it would be basically impossible to save him. This time he mainly wanted to kill a very annoying guy, that is, Orochimaru's assistant Dao Dao. If it weren't for this guy, the ninja war might have to be postponed for a long time, because there are only a few people who can perform the impure world reincarnation. At the same time, he also told Orochimaru not to commit suicide again. If he wants to attack Sasuke again, he must also weigh the strength of Uchiha Itachi. You know, they are brothers who have already made up their minds, but they have not met yet. When it comes to Orochimaru, he thinks of the tragic young man Kimimaro. His terminal illness has been completely cured by Takashi. I don't know if he will be chosen as a new container. I have given him a new life. It's his business to choose. From his conscience, he has done his best. The ground spider on the side was directly killed by Takashi with one knife. There is really no value in keeping such a person. The entire Fuma clan has become completely sick. Although they want to become stronger and their will to pay is very good, that method is absolutely not advisable. Instead of correcting it, it is more convenient to pull it out completely. Although he didn't want to kill innocent people, if the Fuma clan wanted to stop him from finding Orochimaru and Kabuto, Takahashi didn't mind helping their clan. They all bought some other costumes on the way to cover their faces, and Reiga walked in the front. After entering the Sound Village, many people knew him. It seemed that the two sides did have relatively close contacts. Reiga whispered in front. I only have contacts with the Fuma clan. I don't know anything else. As long as I take you to the territory of the Fuma clan, you can leave, right? Takahashi nodded. Yes, it would be even better if we could gather all the masters of their clan together. Thinking of the freedom in the future, Reiga also sighed. As a strong man, he also has self-esteem. It is not what he wants to do to betray his partners like this. But who can let the dead comrade die? The poor Taoist, for the safety of himself and Ranmaru, please die. As for this, Takahashi did not want Hinata and the others to see his cruel scene. At least it was a little too early for them now. Since I'm strong enough, why should I let them see that bloody world? Chapter 38, Fighting the Wind Demon Clan. Arriving at the territory of the Wind Demon Clan, the gatekeeper greeted him warmly. Since the mine had brought great economic benefits to their village, they were very respectful to Leiya. Master Leiya, wait a moment, I'll go and report. Another guard saw Gaokao behind him and asked with a smile. This is a new outstanding junior in your family. It's really valued to be by your side. Gaokao just smiled back. The guard suddenly felt that the people in their family were very good and were so polite to a guard, but they didn't know that this polite man would reveal his very terrifying claws. After entering, a very handsome young man came out and welcomed Leiya very warmly. As he entered the territory, Leiya introduced him in a low voice. This is a very outstanding young man in the Wind Demon clan, named Lan. Then he asked casually, is Kajino here? Yes, he's waiting for you inside. This Kajino is the strongest Jonin in the Fuma clan, and he has the ability to transform. He looks very ugly, but he will become very handsome after the transformation. After entering the house, I found that not only Kajino was in the house, but even Hatsuri was waiting by the side. The two of them are the other two of the three great Jonins of the Fuma clan. There are only 3 Jonins in the Fuma clan in total, which shows how much they value him. As soon as Kajino sat down, he complained. If you want to come, why didn't you let Earth Spider notify me? I'm not prepared at all. If I hadn't been busy recently, I'm afraid we would have missed each other. By the way, is Earth Spider doing well at your place? That guy has a big problem, and you need to take care of him if anything happens. He exchanged a few polite words with Reiga and the others, and then looked at Takahashi behind him. Who is this? He is my friend. He has heard of the name of the Fuma clan, and came here to meet them. He also wants to meet Lord Orochimaru very much. I wonder if you can make an exception. If he said anything else, it would be fine. But when he heard that he wanted to see Orochimaru, Kajino's face suddenly darkened, and he began to ponder. This seems to be a little inconvenient, because Lord Orochimaru has something to do recently, and we can't see him. So I'm really sorry, little brother, I may disappoint you. Reiga also sighed. Kajino thought he was a little disappointed, so he sighed, but he didn't know that this sigh contained too many things, and it was full of sadness. Then he whispered, I have something else to do and will be back soon. Let me, your little brother, stay here for a while. Kojino heard that this was a piece of cake. As long as they didn't plan to get news about Lord Orochimaru, everything else would not be a problem. Don't worry. After leaving here, Rhaegar took a last look at the Fuma clan camp with a hint of meaning. Then he left the Sound Village at a very fast speed, without even looking at the others who greeted him. This time, Rhaegar of the 7 ninja swordsmen was completely dead. Ranmaru asked quietly in the bag behind him. Rhaegar, where should we go now? I don't know. Now I feel that I can go anywhere. I have escaped death twice in a row. I have let go of everything I should let go. With you by my side, I can go anywhere. On the street, Hinata and Sakura also saw Rhaegar running wildly, but he ignored them. Hinata was even more confused. Could it be that something happened to Takashi? Thinking carefully, it is unlikely. If something really happened, how could he run away? And this is the camp of the Fuma clan that he knew. After thinking again and again, she decided to believe what Takashi said before, and waited in peace in this place, waiting for him to pick them up. At this moment, inside the camp of the Fuma clan, a very terrifying scene was taking place. Takashi held the Tensukuma sword, stepped on Yungai's body, and pointed the tip of the sword at Hachiri's throat. Are you taking me to find Orochimaru, or am I going to kill you right here? What happened just now happened in a flash, and the strongest man in their family was killed in an instant. Faki's voice was a little trembling. Why did you do this? What should I do? It's none of your business. Take me to see Orochimaru, or die. Choose one. Just now, although they were still happily chatting, Takashi suddenly picked up the Tensukuma sword in his hand, and did not play by the rules at all. He knocked it to the ground in an instant, and his lover did not even have the opportunity to perform ninjutsu. And this was also his idea. Killing the strongest man in an instant would make other people feel fear. If the one who was killed by that blow was Faki, it would not have this effect. He would probably have a fierce battle with Kojino, and the entire Fuma camp would be a river of blood. I will take you to see Lord Orochimaru. But just after he finished speaking, a flash of light suddenly flashed across his right hand. It was a blade flashing with cold light. If you don't look carefully, you will definitely ignore it. This is also the surprise attack technique that Fakiri is proud of. Many people have died from this move, even if the opponent is much stronger than him. However, this move does not work on Takashi. He is very sensitive to this kind of weak light, and he directly cuts off his right arm with a sword. Still want to struggle? If you don't take me with you, I will leave you here, and then slaughter the entire camp in front of you, and the Fuma clan will be completely famous from now on. You despicable villain, you devil, I will never let you go even if I die. Then wait until you die. It's up to you to decide whether to take me to find Orochimaru. I will give you 5 seconds to think about it now. 5. I won't say it, just give up. Hey, why don't you play by the rules? Don't we still have 4, 3, 1 I'll go, don't say anything more. He looked at Fakiri, bandaging his wound very skillfully. He was about to faint from the pain, but he was still holding on. However, Takashi did not want to help him perform the please don't die trick. It was enough for this guy to be able to bring him to Orochimaru's secret base alive. However, Kabuki was much stronger than he thought. He did not faint all the way. At this time, he might have to leave for a little longer. Thinking of Hinata and Sakura who were still waiting, he was a little worried. However, he thought that the official business was more important, so he let them wait a little longer. He would not feel at ease if he did not kill this guy Kabuto. Although this kind of thing might not necessarily prevent the occurrence of the Ninja World War, it would save a lot of trouble at that time. Chapter 39 Uchiha Itachi. They came to a very remote corner outside the mountain. If someone hadn't led him here, he would not have been able to find it, even after searching for several days. It must be said that Orochimaru's concealment ideas were very advanced. The voice of the hair cutter was a little trembling, not because of fear, but because of pain. Although the wound was cut open, it would not be very painful at that moment, but would slowly develop later. Now the pain was all coming up, making it difficult for him to accept it for a while. But, it's okay, I can leave now. Looking at the half-disabled hair cutter, Takashi still said something to him. Everything will change in the end. If you want to restore the lost glory, you must not take the old path. At this time, the haircutter did not understand the true meaning of this sentence, but Takahashi would show this sentence to him completely, but not now. The reason why Takahashi came here was also because of his thinking. The nearest base of Orochimaru outside Konoha had been discovered, and the place where Shijinobu was imprisoned was too far away. According to common sense, Orochimaru would not go there. The only thing left was the base around the Fuma clan, and many of Orochimaru's favorites were imprisoned here. The most important of his subordinates was a user of the bloodline limit, Hanglian. So no matter how you think about it, Orochimaru might come here. When he came to the periphery, he was still very careful. After all, there were some strong people inside. Although they were not top masters, they could not withstand the 3 punches of many people, and could not defeat 4 hands. It was better to save some energy. But when he got closer, he found a very strange situation. That is, there was no human breath at all in the periphery. He thought that there was an ambush here, or the Fuma clan used some special means to inform Orochimaru in advance that they would come. But in fact, he thought too much. He continued to go deeper, but found that there was still no one. At this time, a bloody smell actually got into his nose. This smell was too familiar. He was surrounded by this smell every day during this period. What's going on? Is there anyone else coming here to kill? To do this in Orochimaru's territory, he is definitely not an ordinary strong man. You have to know that everyone here in Orochimaru has a strength comparable to that of a Jonin. Although there are differences between Jonin and Jonin, people with such strength are not mediocre. The stronger the bloody smell, he even saw several corpses on the corner of the street, which made him curious, and their deaths were very similar. They were all killed by a kunai at a critical moment. In other words, the guy who killed them was a very strong person. The opponent didn't even resist. If he resisted too much, he would be killed, unless the opponent had a high speed or the ability to make others unable to resist. Takahashi asked himself that he could do this, but there was no way to make them not even resist, so it could only be the latter, which could make them lose their resistance in an instant. In addition to illusion, he couldn't think of any other ability. Going all the way to the deepest part, there was a wooden door in front that was tightly closed. Takahashi threw out a kunai with a detonating talisman, and the door opened violently in an instant, and the wood chips were separated into 4 or 3 parts. A man in a red cloud suit was sitting inside. His face was 70% similar to Sasuke, but he looked more mature and stern. His eyes were blood red with very delicate patterns. It was Uchiha Itachi, who had felt the powerful aura before. When Takahashi saw this guy, his first reaction was to close his eyes quickly. So far, he did not have the confidence to completely defend against illusions, let alone such a powerful illusion. However, the moment he closed his eyes, the sky cloud in his hand immediately emerged and then extended like a whip, forming a powerful range of attacks. The place where Uchiha Itachi sat was instantly reduced to ashes, and he also turned into a bunch of crows and flew to other places and then formed his own body. Takahashi could not say whether this ability was an illusion or a substitute technique. In short, it was very strange. He asked first, "Why are you here?" Uchiha Itachi was also puzzled. "I should ask you this question." Then, the two said in unison, "Murder." The purpose of the two was surprisingly consistent. "Who are you going to kill?" The two said in unison again, "Kabuto." Orochimaru. This result was somewhat unexpected for them, especially Uchiha Itachi. This person had no name or surname, and they had never even heard of him before. They only knew that he seemed to be an assistant of Orochimaru, but they didn't expect that he had a feud with Takahashi. Then he pointed to a corner by the wall. "Are you talking about that guy?" Takahashi looked in the direction of the finger, and it turned out to be a man in white clothes with white hair. It was Kabuto. However, Takahashi didn't believe that this guy would die so easily. As a doctor, there are many ways to let yourself die, and there are even more ways to save yourself. He was worried about going forward to finish him off, and he had to kill him with his own hands to feel at ease. Kabuto, who had fallen down like a dead body, suddenly stood up and fought back, and a green light flashed in his hand. This was his classic skill, the scalpel. "I knew you were not dead." Uchiha Itachi was stunned. He didn't expect that this guy's fake death could actually be busy with his eyes. Kabuto was even more puzzled by this. Why do you want to kill me? I'm just a helper of Orochimaru. Takashi was too lazy to explain. No reason is needed. Then he used a laser to penetrate his body. His eyes showed reluctance. He didn't believe that he would die like this. He looked at Takashi's back, still expecting Orochimaru to come and save him. Today, Kabuto was supposed to go out to collect herbs, but because Sasuke also wanted to go out for some fresh air, Orochimaru took him out with him, but he didn't expect to encounter such a bad thing. A future strongman, even a key figure who could start a war, died in advance. This also made Takashi relieved and focused his attention on Uchiha Itachi again. This guy's actions were erratic. Although he was also thinking about Konoha, his behavior was too extreme, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was pathological. It was better to ask clearly just in case. Then why did you come to kill Orochimaru again? Uchiha Itachi's face was still cold. This is none of your business. There is no need for us to fight. If you leave now, I can pretend that I didn't see anything. Otherwise, you are my enemy. Chapter 40. Can't you afford to play? Takashi did not answer, but swept his eyes around everywhere. He was very upset to find that everyone had been killed. He should call Uchiha Itachi a master of time management. This time was too coincidental. He actually arrived here just when they were leaving. But since he wanted to kill Orochimaru, Takashi would definitely not agree, at least not now. Because although he might need Orochimaru's help in some things later, this guy's not absolutely irreplaceable. But now he has a number in his hand that Takashi must learn. That is, the impure world reincarnation and the reincarnation. These two numbers are too important and too perverted. As long as the caster is cruel enough, countless strong people can be restored. If this kind of thing is in the hands of others, it is equivalent to a nuclear bomb in the hands of others. You can choose not to use it, but you must have this ability and master the corresponding measures. Before learning this ability, Orochimaru must not die. And more importantly, the subsequent reincarnation can even directly revive people. It is an outrageous skill, but the way to develop it is very demanding. Uchiha Itachi's thinking was not complicated. He didn't know that Sasuke had seen Danzo's arm and opened the Sharingan. He wanted to find an opportunity to stimulate Sasuke and let this kid open the family ability. After he was driven away by Takashi, he had been looking for opportunities around to awaken the Sharingan of the second pillar, but he never found a suitable opportunity or made time. Every time he secretly observed in the dark and left quietly after a while. Until later, he found that Konoha was in riots and the second pillar had become a traitor. This made him, as the eldest brother, worry about it. How fucked up this kind of thing was, only he knew it. After so many years, it can be said that everyone shouted and beat the rat crossing the street. Without absolute strength, it is easy to die outside. Until one time he found that there were traces of curse marks on the neck of the second pillar. He had worked with Orochimaru before. How could he not know what this was? And he immediately wanted to kill Orochimaru. Those who dared to attack his brother must not be let go. When he later learned that Sasuke actually took the initiative to follow Orochimaru and left, he guessed that he was probably bewitched by this evil guy. If he worshipped him as his master, things would be even more difficult. And he came to die, intending to kill Orochimaru, and then let Sasuke feel the pain again, so as to open the Sharingan. It doesn't matter, even if he hates himself, because this is the fate of the Uchiha family. If you want to carry the blood of this family, you must bear the responsibility that others cannot bear. It's just that his complex and heavy thoughts are absolutely incomprehensible to others, because this kind of thing, this kind of love is too heavy, and it has violated human nature. At this time, Uchiha Itachi's eyes were still fixed on Takashi. If he didn't let him go, he would start attacking in the next second. Takashi said this lightly. I won't let you go, but, as soon as these two words were finished, Uchiha Itachi suddenly attacked, and Takashi was caught off guard. Fuck, why don't you let me finish my words? He originally wanted to tell Uchiha Itachi about Sasuke's situation, but he didn't expect this guy to be so straightforward, and didn't give him a chance to explain. It must be said that his strength is indeed very strong. after opening the Sharingan. Even though Takashi's speed is so fast, he still has room to react. However, this is also related to Takashi's own chakra and physical strength. If one day, Takashi's physical strength can reach the level of opening the 8 gates of the Death Gate, that kind of destructive power may make even the Uchiha class have to take a detour. Takashi is also a little afraid of the unextinguishable Amaterasu. If he gets a little bit of it, it will keep burning on his body. Then the two idiots started to fight continuously in a narrow room. However, after fighting for a long time, it can be said that they are evenly matched, but Takashi has one advantage, that is, his body is particularly good. The effect of the Super Soldier Serum is not covered. No wonder it is said that the rich rely on technology and the poor rely on mutation. The two of them were fighting evenly for a while, but then something unexpected happened, and the system's voice sounded again. The awesome little frog has brought you a gift. Takashi quickly clicked to check. Congratulations on obtaining the Navy 6 style skill. Would you like to learn it? Learn. Takashi sneered. He really got what he wanted. Although he was very fast, he lacked some body skills, and sometimes he would be stiff when turning. The skills in the Navy 6 styles are all very basic physical skills. After learning, not only can he make all parts of his body stronger, but he can also further master the balance of his body, and the coordination at the moment of sneak attack will be more practical. The most important thing is that there are more explosive and defensive means, and these moves can also change continuously according to their own beginnings, thus transforming into new moves. The most important thing is the Navy 6 styles. This skill does not require chakra, but depends on your mastery of the body. Using chakra is also to use it to strengthen your body, then control the body, and then release these moves. It can be said to be very practical. Uchiha Itachi didn't know what Takashi was laughing at, and he used the fire style Fire Phoenix Fairy technique directly. For a moment, countless shurikens burning with flames flew towards him. Takashi wanted to try the power of the new moves he learned. Then, under Uchiha Itachi's very surprised eyes, he performed a move that no human could achieve. He actually stepped on the air and dodged these burning shurikens on the spot. Then he stepped on the air, and with a sound of breaking through the air, he actually attacked directly in the air. This was the moon step, one of the 6 styles. Then he rotated 360 degrees in midair, rubbed the air rapidly with his feet, and rolled up a vacuum attack, like a sharp slash. But this didn't play. After landing, he immediately used the flying finger gun. This move was an advanced version of the finger gun, which could compress the power at the fingertips and shoot like a musket. Uchiha Itachi's several action directions were all blocked. In desperation, he could only use Susanoo. An orange skull rib blocked Takashi's attack, and then a big hand appeared and punched over. He quickly dodged the punch, and blasted a big hole in the house. It seemed that he had really driven Uchiha Itachi crazy. He was so excited about playing, that he forgot that this guy had such a killer move. Takashi came out of another room, and pointed at Uchiha Itachi's nose and cursed. Can't you afford to play? Chapter 41 Uchiha Style Speechlessness. The two of them fought happily. When Uchiha Itachi was about to attack, Takashi stopped him. No more fighting, no more fighting. It's meaningless to fight with you. I feel embarrassed to hurt you. If I don't attack, you hurt me, I will be even more embarrassed. I just don't fight. Uchiha Itachi didn't understand what Takashi meant. He didn't know that his identity and past deeds had been exposed. The two of them were still tit for tat, and at this time, a different voice interrupted their battle. Orochimaru came back with a shocked face. He was fine when he left. Why did he clear the place for me after he came back? Even Sasuke was confused. He even wondered if he came to the wrong place. This was not Orochimaru's base, because there were corpses everywhere. Even Orochimaru couldn't figure out who he had offended. But this was his territory after all. He mustered his courage and insisted on going in to take a look. But when he came back, he found that the inside was even more miserable, and even saw the corpses of Hanglian and Kabuto. These two people were selected by him with great difficulty, but he didn't expect to die in such an accident. Uchiha Itachi and Takashi were looking at each other, and Orochimaru was in a bad mood at this moment. This is my home, my home. They killed all my people, and the two of them fought in their own home. It's not like bullying. At this moment, his face was a little distorted with anger. After so many years of management, it turned out to be like this now. It would be unacceptable for anyone. When Uchiha Itachi saw Orochimaru, he was even more jealous when he met a Superman, especially when Sasuke was still around. Uchiha Itachi suddenly laughed cruelly, and he looked like a pervert, and his tone was very realistic. It seems that I have been away for so long, and you still haven't grown up. You really disappoint me too much. You can't carry the glory of the Uchiha family. I won't recognize someone who can't open the Sharingan. Then Sasuke opened the Sharingan. The scene was directly awkward, and the scene was very quiet for a while. Uchiha Itachi had a puzzled look on his face. Why? After an awkward silence, Uchiha Itachi seemed to be thinking about what he should say next. Even if it's the Sharingan, so what? A waste like you is not worthy of inheriting our Uchiha clan, and Orochimaru will be buried with you. Okay. Uchiha Itachi. Question mark question mark question mark. Why is this a little different from the script he thought of? According to his thinking, after seeing him, Sasuke should be so angry that he wants to tear him into pieces. How could he be so quiet and considerate? He even saw a trace of pity and sadness in Sasuke's eyes. Uchiha Itachi was completely confused. Why is this? Is his acting so bad? Sasuke even shed tears. Nizan, I know what you have done for Konoha. When I saw that armful of Sharingan, I knew who had carried the blood feud of the Uchiha clan, and how much grievance you had. Fortunately, I discovered this matter in time. We two brothers did not turn against each other. As long as we join forces, we can definitely destroy Konoha. I have learned from Orochimaru that you belong to an organization. Let me join it. I will never hold you back. After hearing this, Uchiha Itachi felt bad. What was he doing so much effort for? However, after thinking about it for a long time, he decided to agree. Since he knew these things, he would know them. After all, it was not too shameful. The truth would surface sooner or later. A little earlier would not affect his plan. The most important thing was that Sasuke would be by his side. Although he would have fewer opportunities for experience, he would be safer. Then he glared at Orochimaru fiercely. You must remove the curse seal on Sasuke, or I will kill you. The words were very concise, and there was no strong murderous intent on his body, but no matter how old they were, no one would question what Uchiha Itachi said. The most annoying person among all the people present was Orochimaru himself. Only his injured world had been formed. If he had not already turned evil, he would have wanted to turn evil again. However, under the helplessness of the situation and the strong pressure, he had to compromise. My hands are gone now, and now my hands are only temporary, so it will take some time to remove his curse seal. Uchiha Itachi was more in favor of this statement. If he could solve it suddenly, that would make him doubt it. In this case, he didn't have to kill Orochimaru. Although Uchiha Itachi's hands were already stained with countless blood, I'm afraid no one would object to saying that he was a kind person. When Tomohiro left again, he left an address for Sasuke. As long as he removed the curse seal on his body, he could come here to find them, and even when he was away, he could join the Akatsuki organization. Takashi looked at Orochimaru, and suddenly remembered Kimimaro whom he had let go, and suddenly asked, "How is Kimimaro?" Orochimaru was also stunned by this question. Didn't you kill him? If I wanted to kill him, do you think I would still ask such a stupid question? I guess I didn't kill him, and I cured his terminal illness. It's just that it would be better if he didn't go back, so that you, a bastard, wouldn't do whatever you want. Orochimaru didn't pay attention to the first sentence, but after hearing that Takashi cured Kimimaro's physical symptoms, his eyes lit up. What did you say? You actually cured his terminal illness? This is impossible. I tried many ways and there was no progress. You are not even a medical ninja. How could you cure it? But Takashi didn't explain too much to him. I don't need to explain to you. For your life, you'd better remove Sasuke's curse seal quickly. Otherwise, Uchiha Itachi is a man who keeps his word. Thinking of that cold look, he shuddered. He struggled so hard just to gain immortality. If he died, there would be no immortality. But he had an idea in his mind. After all, the two of them had a hostile relationship before. He even wanted Takashi's life. Of course, he couldn't help him heal his injuries. But he was not worried. He had plenty of time. However, after waiting for a long time, he found that Takahashi was still standing here. He asked with some doubts, "Why don't you leave?" Takahashi said very confidently, "Uchiha Itachi said to let you go, but I didn't say that." Orochimaru was full of question marks on his face. "Are you kidding me? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 42 Northern Stronghold. Orochimaru was very upset along the way because his current strength was not as good as before, and there was Takahashi, a killer, beside him, so he was very depressed. Especially when he thought about how he was so high-spirited before and wanted to marry her life, but now he had to live under someone else's roof and look at other people's eyes. It was uncomfortable to think about it. It turned out that Takahashi did not return to Konoha village directly this time, but sent Hinata and Sakura back first, saying that he had found important clues and wanted to go out to explore alone. After saying this, I believe that the third Hokage would not be too suspicious. In fact, he took Orochimaru to the northern stronghold first to restore his hands, and then let him teach him how to learn the impure world reincarnation. He must master this skill in his own hands. And Orochimaru also found some interesting things along the way, such as Takahashi never practiced, but his strength was very strong. Although he was strong, he was not bloodthirsty, and many times his views were incompatible with the people in the current ninja world. Some of his views even made Orochimaru think that this guy was too kind. For example, when encountering bandits, there were more than a dozen of them, and Takahashi would only seriously injure one person to establish his authority, and would not kill anyone. Or when encountering some overbearing guys, his subconscious mind was not to kill, but to dodge. If it were an ordinary ninja, he would definitely not tolerate it, and would kill him with thunder. When resting at night, the two of them also lived in the same room. If the guy wanted to run, Takahashi would not mind using Sharingan to chop off his legs. But that night, Orochimaru did not sleep peacefully. Thinking about what happened between the two of them in the past few days, he suddenly said, "I used to think you were a qualified ninja because you were decisive, but after these few days of acceptance, I found that you are not. Not only are you a little indecisive, but you also have some mercy in it. This kind of mercy will cost you your life." Hearing Orochimaru's evaluation of himself, Takahashi laughed faintly. "You are right. I will not let my enemy go, but that does not mean that I'm very good at killing. I just kill reasonably to maximize the results. Killing outside the game has no effect. Instead, it will change your mind. However, as long as your goal is big enough, you will not hesitate to fill it with more people, such as the entire ninja world. What do you think?" Orochimaru was confused, but for some reason, the last four words "the entire ninja world" made people shudder. Obviously, each word is very gentle, but after saying it, there is a feeling of numbness. Orochimaru wanted to dispel this feeling, but the more he thought about it, the more he had no choice but to joke. "Your joke is not so funny." Takahashi just asked back, "Do you think I'm joking?" At this moment, Orochimaru suddenly couldn't see through the boy in front of him. Although the college is very strong, in the eyes of him, who is already several dozen years old, he is just a child. No matter how strong he is, Orochimaru has a sense of superiority in his heart, that is, worldly experience and great goals. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a little inferior. As a person with great goals, he suddenly felt that Takahashi's plan was too big and terrifying. He could not think of what he was going to do, but it was out of animal instinct. Seeing Orochimaru's serious look, Takahashi just smiled. "Look at your look, I was just joking. Go to bed early. You still have to finish your work when you arrive at the northern base." After that, Takahashi closed his eyes without saying a word, but his brain did not stop working. It was not until half an hour later that his breathing stabilized. But Orochimaru on the side had insomnia. He even felt that there was something wrong with him. A joke told by a child made him feel a little nervous. He just went to sleep. He didn't know how old Takahashi really was. When a modern mind and an alien world merged with each other, how strong sparks would burst out. He didn't know this kind of thing. At least now he just felt that this kind of thing was unreasonable, too unreasonable, and even felt distorted, and he just wanted to calm this distortion. After a few days, they finally arrived at the northern stronghold. Seeing this familiar place, Orochimaru couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He finally returned to this familiar place. When he entered, a large group of cursed creatures suddenly rushed towards him, but they did not attack them. Instead, they squatted beside him like dogs, looking at Orochimaru seriously. To them, Orochimaru was the master and an insurmountable noble figure. Although their strength was strong, even comparable to the level of Chunin or even Jonin, even so, Okami was still an extremely sacred figure in their eyes. After entering the northern stronghold, they came to the deepest laboratory, but found that there were traces of life here. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows and found that the surroundings were spotless. These guys who were trained by themselves did not have the habit of cleaning. Only one, JGO, was relatively a good person under normal circumstances, but the premise was that Kimimaro must be by his side. At this time, a surprised voice suddenly appeared on the side. Lord Orochimaru, why did you come back so suddenly? But this voice was very familiar. The two turned their heads and saw that it was Kimimaro holding a tray with 2 cups of tea on it. It turned out that after Takashi's brainwashing, he was a little confused. The words of Orochimaru and Takashi kept pulling in his heart. Finally, he planned to go to the northern base to find JGO to relieve his mood. As a result, he stayed there for several days. Unexpectedly, they found this place. In comparison, Orochimaru was also surprised. He found that Kimimaro's strength had actually decreased a lot, and the most important thing was that he didn't look sick. It was hard to believe that what Takashi said before was true. He actually cured the terminal illness that he couldn't do anything about. Unfortunately, now his hands are gone, and it is very difficult to carry out the plan to seize it. He couldn't help but sigh. Some things are really beyond his control. Kimimaro was even more surprised to see Takashi on the side. Aren't they enemies of life and death? How did they get together? This situation made his head obviously unable to react. However, Gaokawa was relatively approachable at this time, so there was no need to pretend to be fierce and ferocious. A lot of things happened, and it is inconvenient to explain them to you here, but it is enough for you to know that I'm not an enemy now. Chapter 43 What is a ninja? The determination to change. At this time, a guy in gray linen came in from outside. Why did he look like a sports uniform? And when the other guys who were using the curse seal saw this guy, they all retreated, obviously feeling afraid. And this guy was the best person who could use the curse seal besides Kimimaro, JGO. He was a very gentle person without the curse seal going berserk, very kind and polite, even a little restrained, and nodded quietly to Takashi. Hello. Takashi also returned the greeting. After arriving here, Orochimaru didn't want to delay and went straight to his own experiment. His best assistant had been completely killed, and there was no way but to let someone replace him. Besides Orochimaru, there were only JGO, Kimimaro and Takashi left here who could be sane, so they had to let the 3 of them operate. Time passed quickly. In the past few days, Takashi saw that his traveling frog had finished resting, so he released it again. If nothing unexpected happened, after learning the impure world reincarnation technique here, his awesome little frog could come back again when he returned to Konoha village. When he was helping Orochimaru here, although he was just helping, many core tasks were completed by him. Orochimaru was just directing from the side. This was his first time to come into contact with these scientific matters. Putting aside his character, in this era of fighting with cold weapons, Orochimaru was able to come up with so many new tricks. It is absolutely not an exaggeration to say that he is a genius. Takashi still agrees that this new technology can promote progress. War cannot give birth to new technology and progress. Only a stable period of peaceful development can achieve large-scale progress. It's just that this guy's thinking is too cult, and it must be corrected before it can be used. Otherwise, the current thinking can easily cause big trouble. After staying here for about a week, Orochimaru's hands were finally able to move. Although they were still a little clumsy and were wrapped in tight bandages, it was amazing enough. from the perspective of modern medicine, this is basically unrealistic. But in this outrageous ninja world, it can actually be achieved. It's just that the physical body is different, and the effect of using chakra will be different. But if chakra can be used without, these arms may be fine for a lifetime. In the process, Kimimaro also learned a lot. Although he can't completely replace Kabuto, fortunately this kid's brain is too smart. He can remember things after being told once, and he can think about it again and again after going back. He suddenly felt that this kind of thing is much better than killing, and there is a sense of belonging. After Takashi learned everything here, he finally learned the impure world reincarnation. Although this thing is called a technology, it is not that difficult. It is more dangerous. There is also the use of chakra and the effect of success and failure of casting. If this kind of thing is not taught by words and deeds, it is difficult to understand, but Takashi actually learned it in just half a day, and it is very thorough. The only price is the lives of many animals, and even the lives of the cursed. Although he feels cruel about this, he thinks it is also a necessary sacrifice. Moreover, those cursed have gone completely crazy, and can never become human again. This can also be regarded as helping them to be free. Takashi looked at the things here. Although they were all cross-era things, Orochimaru's research direction was obviously wrong. This road was obviously heading towards Kinshihuan's goal, which was the road to immortality. He had to make Orochimaru stop the loss in time on this ridiculously wrong road. At night, Kimimaro hunted a lot of wild game. Because Takashi was leaving tomorrow, he did not intend to have any conflict with them. Instead, they had a long talk. He planned to have a talk with them about the Forbidden City. Takashi felt that scientists like Orochimaru were wasting talents for studying these messy things here, and there was absolutely no result. But Orochimaru was very happy that he could finally send away this plague god who could threaten his life at any time. However, while eating, Takashi suddenly said something thought-provoking. "What do you think is a ninja?" Kimimaro expressed his own views. "A ninja is a sharp sword." Takashi nodded and looked at JGO again. "I'm not a ninja, so I don't quite understand." But Orochimaru's eyes were filled with a hint of anger and sadness. "Ninjas are just a group of pathetic people, tools for fighting, poor bugs." Takashi nodded to all of this, and then suddenly said seriously, "The so-called ninjas should be tools for change, making the world more stable, more appropriate, and even better, but they have become the most pathetic people, and they are even more helpless." However, Orochimaru just smiled disdainfully at Takashi's words, thinking that this kid is still too young after all, but he did not refute it, because he was also like this when he was young, with very broad ideals. With the erosion of time, he gradually lost hope in Konoha and even the entire ninja world. "I suggest you don't think so. One person can't change anything." Takashi seemed to be talking to himself, and also seemed to be talking to Orochimaru. "If you can't do it, can you just not do it? If you do it, there is a 50% chance of victory, but if you don't do it, it is absolutely zero." However, this made Orochimaru, who had experienced countless changes, faintly ignite the flame in him again. But after all, he was still experienced, and did not respond. Takashi continued to talk to himself. "I can tell you have basically failed in your revenge on Konoha, and you won't succeed in the future." Orochimaru looked over with some curiosity. "Why do you say that?" "It's simple, because I'm here in Konoha, and there are people I care about there, and I won't let you destroy it. Instead of spending time hating it, you should think about how to develop some new technologies. What you are doing now is impossible to succeed if you test it with countless people. But I have a new way here. Although it may not be able to realize your ideal, it is much better than being depressed by yourself. If you figure it out, you can come to Konoha to find me in plain clothes." After saying that, he stopped caring about others and started eating and drinking. Although he didn't consume any physical energy, his appetite was still strong. He actually ate half a venison by himself, which made others a little surprised. The next day, at dawn, he had packed up and was ready to get up. When he left a note for the cart team. It pointed out the shortcomings of Orochimaru's experiment from his modern scientific point of view. Although it was some basic scientific knowledge learned in high school and college, this kind of thing was enough to shock Orochimaru. Chapter 44 Iron Man Armor. space system opened. When they woke up the next day, they found that Takashi had disappeared. At that time, he picked up the note left beside him. After a while, he sighed silently and looked at the ceiling. He said in a voice that only he could hear, "Is what I did before really not worth mentioning?" Seeing Orochimaru's appearance, Kimimaro asked worriedly, "Lord Orochimaru, is there something bad written on it?" "Yes, I was ridiculed. Maybe we should really abandon this place and start a new life." No one can know how sad he was when his weakness was exposed for many years, but it was not now. Things should be done from beginning to end. He should be responsible for his own psychology and complete his last experiment. If it fails again, he may really consider looking for Takashi. I hope it will succeed. On the other side, Takashi was on his way back to Konoha at a high speed. It was not that I didn't eat well and sleep well outside. He didn't like this feeling very much, although those guys didn't pose any threat to him. But there were too many flies, which was also very annoying. He traveled day and night and successfully returned to Konoha 2 days later. The gatekeeper saw that it was Takashi and let him go. He was the one who cured the third Hokage, so they respected him. Although some people said it was just a scam, relatively speaking, there were still more people who believed it. After all, the tragedy caused by Orochimaru at that time was no joke. He said hello, and when he returned to Konoha, he walked on his own 2 feet. The leaves on the road had turned yellow, and the weather was a little cold. Takashi didn't expect that it would be autumn in the blink of an eye. Time passed too fast. When he returned home, he found that Hinata was sitting quietly on the steps in front of his door alone, and she actually fell asleep leaning on the handrail next to her. This made him feel distressed, and he quickly took off his clothes and put them on her body. This action also woke Hinata up. With a dazed look, she looked at Takashi, who was distressed and angry on his face. When she came to her senses, she found that she had fallen asleep in front of the door. He said angrily, "Why don't you take care of your body? It's so cold. What if you catch a cold sitting here? If I come back, I will definitely come to you. Didn't I tell you to protect yourself? Don't do this next time." Hinata seemed to know that she was wrong, but her face was a little aggrieved, and her eyes were shining with water. "But seeing that you never come back, I'm a little worried. I feel that sitting here will make me feel a lot more at ease, although I know you haven't come back." Takashi really couldn't get angry now. For the girl who sometimes acted silly, he was mainly distressed, and he directly hugged her. This sudden action surprised Hinata, and she exclaimed "ah," and then she covered her blushing face with 2 small hands. After entering the house, Takashi quickly heated a cup of milk. He looked at her blushing face with some joking. "Why is your face so red?" Hinata hurriedly explained. "It's too cold. It must be like this. Yes, it's too cold." Takashi also drank a sip of milk and looked at her quietly. Originally, he wanted to say, "Why don't you stay here for one night?" But at this critical moment, his little frog came back. The words that were about to come out of his mouth were swallowed back by him. "Do you want it?" Hinata's big watery eyes stared at Takashi. "Do you want what? Do you want me to take you home?" Hinata said gently. He felt that he had replied too quickly just now, but it seemed a little late to return now, and he wanted to give himself a big slap. But the words had already been spoken, and if he regretted it now, wouldn't it mean that he had ulterior motives? He didn't want to leave Hinata with that kind of wretched impression. His psychological struggle just now was even stronger than the psychological struggle when he fought with Kimimaro. If someone knew about it, he would probably be directly pissed off. After sending Hinata home, he took a comfortable hot bath and then checked what the traveling frog brought back for him. This time he didn't go for a long time, and when he clicked it, he saw an explanation. "Your little frog has triggered a bonus critical hit." Takashi was a little puzzled. What the hell is this? There is such a situation in his game, but who cares? Since it has already been critically hit, it must bring him some good things. When he clicked it, he was stunned. A bright red mechanical armor appeared in front of them. Is this Mark's mechanical armor? He really couldn't help it, but he was not complaining, but excited. Which man can refuse a magical armor that can go to the sky and into the sea? Every man has an irresistible mecha dream. Although this meteor is not as terrifying as the Gundam or Pacific Rim meteor, it does not mean that it is not powerful. If used properly, it can do more things. Not to mention anything else, just saying that it can fly a little can already crush many people in the human world. If I remember correctly, it seems that only Gaara and Inoki can fly in the entire human machine world. But at this time, a very painful thing actually happened. Since the weather has turned cold, the frog needs to hibernate. When the weather warms up, it will be able to revive again and bring you more powerful rewards. The awesome little frog will be even more powerful. Uchiha was really annoyed when he saw this scene. It's not even a full autumn yet, so why are you hibernating? However, facing this kind of pain, he could only accept it with pleasure. It was only a few months, and he could still endure it. Now, although he couldn't say that he was invincible, there were not many people who could keep him. Unless the shadow level bosses of several villages were united, they might kill him without even a chance to run. Otherwise, as long as he was left with a first line upgrade, he couldn't be kept. Just when Uchiha was grieving over the fact that the little frog was gradually falling into a deep sleep, a function suddenly appeared in the system. Congratulations to the host for turning on the storage function. Please check it. It was another function that he had never seen before, but since it was a new function, it was better to familiarize himself with it. Click to view. Suddenly a new panel appeared, which turned out to be a backpack system. In other words, you can carry it with you without being discovered by others. This can be said to be a very good thing for home travel. However, there are not many places to put things, only 5 empty spaces. If you want to continue to unlock, you need to spend money. Regardless of so much, Takashi just wants to enjoy the Iron Man armor first. However, when the Iron Man armor came, he found a problem. He was too big and couldn't wear it. At the same time, an instruction manual fell out. Chapter 45 Ninja Scientist. The next morning, he woke up and looked at the Iron Man armor that he couldn't get on. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He walked around for a few times, but didn't find any trend to expand it, so he kicked it down. As soon as the armor fell, he found the instruction manual dropped at his feet. He was so angry last night that he didn't have the energy to read it carefully. He just lay down and fell asleep. He picked up the instruction manual and started to read it carefully. Then his expression became more and more surprised. This instruction manual turned out to be a comprehensive guide containing the design drawings of Iron Man. Not only are there design drawings, but also his later improvements and other things. There are also detailed explanations on weapon improvements. Let alone other things. Simply improving these weapons into hot weapons will be a very powerful weapon. Originally, he thought that it could be modified to his own body shape, but as he continued to flip through the pages, his heart gradually cooled down, because he found that with the current scientific level of the ninja world, it was impossible to manufacture such a sophisticated machine, not to mention that it could be modified according to his body shape. Basically, the entire mecha had to be dismantled and rebuilt. His heart immediately cooled down, and he said angrily, "It's really our dog. I finally got the thing, but I can't wear it." This kind of thing really makes him unbearable. Looking at the Iron Man armor that fell to the ground, he pondered for a long time, and suddenly had a very bold idea. Since he couldn't wear the armor, could he copy the weapons he brought with him? If these weapons were copied, there would definitely be a very good market, and then his living conditions would be improved. Then he looked at the grid in the backpack again. Now he could only open 5, and he could open 5 more by paying 1000 ninja yen. Now he still had this little money. He spent 1000 ninja yen to open it directly, and then the system prompt sound came. Congratulations to the host for getting +1 physical strength. Takashi was stunned. What happened? Opening these grids can actually get attribute rewards. He clearly felt that his physical strength was a little stronger, although it was subtle, but according to his control over his body, he could feel it. He looked at the dense grids. Although the attribute added each time he opened it was relatively small, it was still a lot. If all the grids were opened, his body would have a very terrifying growth rate. Thinking of this, he was not only a little excited, but also continued to look down. It turned out that the more grids he opened, the more money he needed. There were even hundreds of millions of terrifying numbers below, which meant that he needed a lot of money to open all the grids. He looked back at the Iron Man armor. What would it be like if this cross-era weapon appeared on the ninja battlefield? When others were fighting with bitterness, if his side appeared with laser cannons, it would be a complete crushing. The sales of this kind of thing, even if you think with your toes, it would be very violent, but now you need to figure out the principle before you can mass produce it. After carefully looking at the materials needed, he found that they were basically all there. Although the technology in this world was not very good, the most basic power applications were still available. Some power links were not a problem, so there was a better solution for energy. Even the energy could be replaced by chakra, which saved some production consumption. Time was running out, so he went out to search for materials immediately. The first thing he had to do was to use the laser thermal energy weapon on the palm of the Iron Man armor. This kind of thing had low noise, strong lethality, and did not require ammunition to carry. It was simply too suitable on the battlefield. But there is a saying that it is easy to look at flowers, but difficult to embroider them. On the first day of his experiment, an explosion occurred in the house, and a black smoke came out, scaring the people around him to find someone to put out the fire. It was not until Takashi came out in a dusty state that the people around him felt relieved, but they did not feel relieved for long. On the third day, there was another explosion. On the fifth day, and on the sixth day, Takashi finally made a phased progress and made a new type of energy equipment. Although it was not as good as the reactor made by Tony himself, it was definitely a cross-era symbol in the ninja world. But at this moment, the others finally couldn't stand it anymore. No one could tolerate a guy who often exploded to live next to him. There was no way. He could only use most of his income to build a very solid and durable laboratory in the basement of his house. The wall was more than 1 meter thick. Not to mention such a small explosion. Even if dozens of kilograms of TNT were placed, it would probably not even shake. Now he can have enough energy to devote to research. After another 3 days, he felt a problem. It was too slow to make it by himself. Whether it was buying things, testing, or even cleaning and taking care of it, he had to do it by himself. If it went on like this, when would he be able to complete the first weapon? Just when he was irritated, the door of the house above was knocked. In order to prevent himself from not hearing it, he specially made a doorbell that could lead to the basement. He went out with a manic face, opened the door and said impatiently, "Who is it? I don't need fire protection measures here." As a result, when he opened the door, he saw that it was a stranger. Takashi was sure that he had never seen this guy before, but then he looked at the vertical pupil and immediately recognized that this guy was not Orochimaru. He asked with some difference, "Why are you here?" Orochimaru spread his hands. "Didn't you say you welcome me? I'm here. If you don't welcome me, I'll go back." "Welcome? Who said no?" Then he stuck his head out and looked around. Orochimaru said, "Don't look. I'm the only one here. The two of them are not very stable. It's better to leave them in the base." Takashi nodded. What he said made sense. Kimamero's iconic white hair, coupled with JGO's extremely unstable personality, and Konoha's elusive Anbu, if they find out one day, he won't be able to explain himself. No one has seen Orochimaru's current face. Orochimaru can't be spotted by ordinary people walking on the street. The most important thing is that this guy has a strong ability to escape. Before Orochimaru sat down to take a breath, Takashi led him directly to his basement. Seeing the gloomy atmosphere here, and the traces of explosions all around, even a scientific researcher like Orochimaru couldn't help but look strange. "How did you manage to leave scars on these extremely solid stones? They are at least 1 meter thick. I don't think I could do it." Takashi was very thick-skinned. Facing such sarcasm, he just smiled faintly. Basic operation. Don't be stupid. Chapter 46 The Shura Field of Gyaryakumo and Hinata. With the addition of Orochimaru, the speed of his weapon making process has been greatly accelerated. The work that was originally done by one person can now be shared by 2 people, and even many difficult and complicated things can be handed over to Orochimaru. This guy is very good at hands-on work, and he has a very thorough understanding of the explanation of physics, because chakra is much more complicated than electricity and mechanics. The human body is the most sophisticated instrument. If they can cultivate the human body to a high level, their brains are very useful. And this is the first time he has come into contact with the so-called physics, and he is directly addicted to it. He didn't expect that there is such an interesting science. He even thinks that, if physics is studied to the highest level, machines can replace the human body, and even the human brain can be placed in the machine to continue to survive. Isn't this the immortality he wants? For the first time, Orochimaru felt that he had come to the right place. Not only could he learn more knowledge that he was interested in, but he could also get one step closer to his desired goal. It was simply killing 3 birds with 1 stone. However, he couldn't go out by himself to get the materials he needed. If he was seen by the Enbu and aroused suspicion, that would be bad. So Gyokyo had to go out to buy materials again and again, and then conduct experiments. However, the more annoying thing was that due to the geographical location and scope of the wood industry, they would not import so many goods. Therefore, after Gyokyo bought out some goods, they would need some time to import them, which made him very annoyed. However, these were necessary preparations for making powerful weapons. It was better to test them a few more times, and absolutely not to be careless. You know, these are things for the battlefield. If they fail on the battlefield, it will cost lives. The most important thing for weapons dealers is reputation, which is above all else. However, in addition to these things, he now has another worry, that is, there is a very sweet looking girl following him behind him, holding a drawing board in her hand, following him all the way. Gyokyo couldn't stand it anymore, and turned around and said, "Please, what are you going to do?" The girl picked up the drawing board and said seriously, "I want to draw you. Let me finish, and I won't bother you anymore." Takashi didn't know this person at all. He just met her by chance 2 days ago. As a result, since the girl knew his name was Takashi, she has been pestering him. And somehow, the two of them often meet by chance. Whenever they see each other, she won't give up, and pesters him to be a nude model. Takashi agreed that this girl was really too much of a shrew. No matter what he said, or how he refused, he didn't take it seriously at all. She also said that she heard from teacher Yuhi Kurenoi about his deeds of saving the 3rd Hokage, and she insisted on drawing a portrait for him. But Takashi is so busy now, how can he have the time? Drawing a portrait takes at least a day, and it may not even be enough. There are also subsequent revisions. Now he is still racing against time. Wasting time means wasting money, and wasting money is a crime. And today, he was really a little bit overwhelmed by this girl. "Okay, young lady, I'm afraid of you. Let's make a deal. Just one picture, no full body. Just a half body portrait." He thought it would take less time to draw a half body portrait than a full body one. The girl's eyes lit up, and then she said it was okay, but it was not possible in the city, with people coming and going, which would affect the creation. As a result, they had no choice but to go to the back mountain. Since the girl walked too slowly, Gyokyo had no choice but to carry her on his back. The girl didn't say anything, but just lay quietly on Gyokyo's back, lying steadily on it, as if she was enjoying it a little. Gyokyo's speed was very fast, and his body was very stable. His strong body and back were also very thick. In addition, his good-looking face made him a type that girls liked. The two of them went there before noon, and they didn't even have food, but they didn't come back until dusk. Gyokyo posed in the same position for a whole day. The little girl looked at the painting in her hand, very satisfied, and then put it away. "The painting is good, let's go back." It was Takashi's turn to be a little stunned. Wouldn't he give it to himself? "Little sister, isn't your painting for me?" The little girl was immediately unhappy when she heard her being called a little sister. "We are about the same age. I'm not a little sister. My name is Yakumo." "Who else said that this painting is for you? I worked hard for a day to paint it. This is of course my achievement, and I didn't even have lunch." Takashi's mind was full of question marks. What was going on with this guy? And not having lunch had nothing to do with him. You still had to keep painting here. But he didn't say these, just nodded a little painfully. Then no matter how he carried him here, no matter how he carried him back, he had run into a living enemy. When he returned to Konoha village, he passed by Chiraku Ramen and saw Yakumo, who was starving next to him. He didn't feel embarrassed to let him go back like this. Come on, I'll treat you to ramen. Yakumo actually walked in arrogantly, and Takahashi sighed and followed behind. After entering, a fragrant smell made him close his eyes. The food seemed even more delicious after being hungry. Suddenly, a sentence made him sweat all over. Hey, isn't this Takahashi-kun? You come here to eat ramen too? The voice was Hinata! Exclamation mark. Damn, how could there be such a pitfall? And at this time, Yakumo was still urging in front. Hurry up, Takahashi, I'm starving. Hinata's face was a little ugly, and her little face changed several expressions at once, and finally looked at Takahashi with grievance. Who is she? She is Yakumo. I don't know the details. She helped me draw today. We are not really familiar with each other. Hearing Takahashi distance the relationship between the two, Yakumo felt uncomfortable, even if it was true. Is he so unbearable? You've been carrying me on your back for so long. Are you treating me like this? Hinata was quite considerate and didn't show any strangeness here, but just gave Takahashi a look that said, I'm waiting for your explanation. This also made him feel relieved. After all, it was our Hinata who was considerate. Yakumo saw that his words didn't stir up any waves and curled his lips in boredom. Then the two of them sat down, and Takahashi asked Yakumo with a smile. Can you eat spicy food? I can't eat spicy food very well, and I don't like things with strong flavors. Takahashi greeted directly. Boss, 2 bowls of ramen, heavy oil and salt, both are super spicy. Chapter 47 Redefining the Will of Fire. The two finished their meal, and it was a pleasant ending, but when Takahashi went back, he was still wondering who this girl was, and why he didn't remember such a person. When he got home, he also brought a bowl of ramen to Orochimaru. When he was halfway through his meal, Takahashi suddenly slammed the table and almost choked him to death. What are you yelling about? You haven't bought the things you need all day, and you are still yelling here? Takahashi quickly recounted what happened today. Orochimaru was not interested in these things between men and women. He was only interested in his obsession. And Takahashi finally remembered who Yakumo was, and why he drew pictures for him. Because this woman can be said to be a very buggy character in the early days of Naruto. This person is a descendant of the Kurama clan, but her physique is very weak, and it is difficult for her to become a qualified ninja. But she has a very powerful blood limit, which is even a bit perverted. It can make things in illusions become reality, and Yakumo can make things in the painting become reality again, but her ability is completely out of Sei. Sei can only make the painting appear in the form of his own painting, and then it can only turn into a pool of ink, but Kurama Yakumo is different. He can even draw abstract things such as lightning and fire, and make them appear in real form. But now, this little girl is a time bomb. As a little girl, her mental state is very poor, and she is prone to emotional disorder. She has no complete ability to control her own abilities, and it is easy to form a destructive personality, and that kind of thing will also form a very twisted monster. Although this thing is not a physical entity, it does not belong to the general nature of the creature. This thing is very abstract. If Kurama Yakumo is not killed, this thing can be said to be almost unsolvable. The most exaggerated thing is that she can even create a strange space and pull people into it. Because she is not very old, she can basically not tell what is an illusion, but fortunately she is weak. If a very strong ambition is used by bad people, the result will be very terrible. Thinking of this, Takahashi shuddered. He had previously drawn his own painting, which meant that, if he was angered, and he used his ability to tear up the painting, he would be killed. His neck suddenly felt a little cold. Seeing his strange appearance, Orochimaru felt a little strange, but didn't say much. After finishing the meal, the two continued to play with new weapons. Orochimaru held Iron Man's right hand excitedly. This weapon is so exquisite that it is so difficult for us to imitate it. I really don't know how the developer's brain thinks. At our current level, it is basically unrealistic to imitate it, but it is still possible to take it out as a separate product. Then Orochimaru took out a semi-finished laser gun. The reason why it is called a laser gun is that there is no traditional muzzle in the front, but a crystal that can gather energy and emit it instead. There is also a metal body that can store energy in the back. This metal has a very good chakra transmission function and can also play a slight amplification role. then the metal will act on the energy gathering crystal in front, emitting rays, causing a certain amount of destructive power. As for what exactly this crystal is, Takashi couldn't say. It was somewhat similar to crystal, but not very eye-catching. In the ninja world, it was generally used as a decoration, or made into a chandelier, so it was very cheap. This was the first time the two of them experimented with semi-finished products. The main purpose was to see if they could penetrate the flesh. They took a large piece of pork belly and placed it in front of them. They fired it suddenly from a distance of about a few meters. The orange-yellow beam penetrated the pork in front without any pressure, and even a hole was pierced on the wall. The pork had already been burnt around. Looking at this power, Takashi smiled with satisfaction. If this kind of injury was caused on the battlefield, if the internal organs were injured, this method would not even give the opponent a chance to rescue. In addition, there were some key designs in it. He was confident that, even if it was taken away by the opponent, it would be impossible to crack it within a few years. By then, even if the opponent cracked it, he would have already launched new and stronger weapons. Those obsolete ones, they could imitate them as they wished. Takashi was quite satisfied with the effect of the first experiment, but seeing that Orochimaru was somewhat lost in thought, he felt that this guy didn't seem to be so satisfied. What's wrong? Is there any problem? Orochimaru suddenly said. If this thing is continuously released, it will definitely consume a lot of unnecessary chakra. Can it be changed to burst shooting? Takashi exclaimed. Wow, isn't this an automatic rifle? It can be fired in bursts, and can be pressed for a long time. Then he asked in a low voice. Are you also planning to add a scope to it, so that the ninja can see farther? Orochimaru's eyes suddenly brightened a lot. So you think so too? I thought there must be differences in the eyesight of ninjas before. In this way, the power of everyone will be maximized. It's only been a few days, and he can have such an idea. He thinks that Orochimaru is really good at scientific research and innovation. You know, this is the era of cold weapons using knives and kunai. The shogun has already considered the consumption rate and accuracy of weapons. This is a very difficult ideological gap to cross. They did it right away, and they started to work non-stop, because Konoha now sells telescopes, which are not rare. Orochimaru began to work on improving it, how to make the laser gun into a burst without affecting the accuracy and power of long shots. A few days passed, and under Takashi's guidance, he installed the buttstock and scope of the laser gun. It was quite comfortable to use, but it was obviously not prepared for Takashi, and it looked a bit miniature when he held it. However, Orochimaru was just right for it, but this time it was a complete version, and the power was much stronger than before, so it could no longer be tested in the basement. Then the two had no choice but to go to the back mountain and test it in the jungle, and fired a shot at a tree that was so thick that two people could hug it. This shot actually penetrated the tree directly, and not only that, it also left a 3-finger wide hole, which was full of burnt brown marks around it, and even had the smell of burnt charcoal. The two smiled at each other. This power was already very successful, and the power fired was enough to be equivalent to a B-level ninjutsu. Takashi laughed with a gun. From today on, we will redefine the will of fire. Chapter 48, Crazy Acceptance of Missions, the Shining Star of Konoha. In order to make this thing universal for men, women, old and young, a storage battery was specially made, which is similar to a magazine. At this time, a little head suddenly appeared next to it, got off Takashi, and put away the gun in an instant, and Orochimaru disappeared at this moment. This person is Yakumo. When she has nothing to do, she always paints on the back mountain. When she came out, she saw that only Takashi was here, and said with some displeasure, I clearly heard two people's voices just now. How come you are alone? Takashi waved his hand. You heard it wrong. I have always been alone here. I was just training my new ninjutsu. He looked around, and saw that there was no one. Since he remembered how terrifying this little girl Yakumo was, he didn't dare to provoke her. What a joke. She will die if she tears up the painting in her hand. What's the point of playing a fart? And the one who took care of Kurama Yakumo before was always Yuhi Kurenai. Now seeing that this guardian has disappeared, Takashi was angry and wanted to curse in the street, which was tantamount to letting a walking bomb on the street. At this time, a voice suddenly came from the system. An unknown threat has been detected. The tentative name is the evil spirit of illusion. It will appear when the host collapses. It can be recovered and used. However, it should be noted that this creature is very dangerous and may even wipe out the existence of all living things. Be careful. Gaokaiwa was stunned. In other words, can he recover her outrageous mental ability? However, the real horror is not the evil spirit of illusion, but the terrifying ability of Kuramiya Kumo itself. However, this terrifying creature cannot be born without a host, and the system has said that it can be recovered and used. This matter is very easy to handle. Such a buggy ability must be obtained by himself. Moreover, at this time, the little frog is sleeping, and it can be used to make up for the lack of his own power. The condition displayed by the system is that Yakumo's mind needs to collapse, but how can he make this little girl collapse? If he does something shameful to her, it is estimated that it will be similar. But if that happens, he will really become a beast. If he can't even control himself, how can he talk about controlling the ninja world? Isn't that a joke? Takashi's eyes darkened, but he was still smiling as he thought of a way. He had to approach her first and then think of a countermeasure. With this idea in mind, he went forward to say hello. As expected, he was drawn by Yakumo for a whole day. After returning home, Orochimaru was a little dissatisfied. He felt that he finally had a like-minded partner, but the other party was addicted to playing every day. When he was about to get angry, he saw Takashi's tired face, and the words were stuck in his mouth. In fact, he didn't know what kind of psychological pressure Takashi was under every day. The feeling of holding his life in the hands of others and rubbing it repeatedly was too sour. He was afraid that this little girl would be dissatisfied with his flowers and then cut them off with the scissors. However, the more you pay, the richer the reward will be. He is more and more looking forward to how terrifying the power of the illusion evil spirit will be when he gets it. But Orochimaru couldn't help but say it in the end. Although this sentence is a bit embarrassing, I still have to say it because it is related to the final success or failure of our scientific research. Takashi didn't expect that things had risen to this level and frowned. What's the matter? We have no money. Gaokaiwa did not expect that it would be such a matter, but it was indeed important enough. It was not only related to the success or failure of their scientific research, but also to their own survival. Since they had done too many experiments recently, the things they consumed seemed insignificant, but the price of the combination was very shocking. If he had not done a lot of tasks before and killed many jonin, he would have been eunuch halfway through the experiment. Then he sighed. Leave it to me. You continue to research here. It would be best if you can find some fast manufacturing methods. The next day, Gaokaiwa turned into a madman who accepted tasks and only accepted tasks above B level. S level tasks are hard to come by, not all the time, and A level tasks are actually quite tight, but it depends on the time, but they are not as rare as S level. He had to keep accepting tasks, holding the idea that even a mosquito leg is meat, again and again. His highest record was to accept 6 B level tasks and 3 A level tasks in one breath. And they were all completed very properly. Even the people who managed the tasks were very surprised at this speed. Because the speed is too fast, and after getting the money, they will immediately choose the next task, and they are not tired of it. At this time, he suddenly saw a strange task, but it can't be called a task, it's just an investigation, and this thing is about the Hidden Rain Village. Takashi frowned. It seems that Konoha has discovered that there is something wrong with this place a long time ago, but it has never taken it seriously. It thinks that it is just a small country, and it will never affect the safety of their fire country in Konoha. Thinking of the terrifying Shinra Tensei, if the terrifying super large-scale Shinra Tensei is released in the village again this time, who knows how many people will die. I can imagine the appearance of people I'm familiar with falling in a pool of blood. If Hinata is among them, the ending is simply unimaginable. If I can't change it, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep peacefully for the rest of my life, and I will always live in guilt. But he can't find a way to solve this particularly exaggerated ability, but fortunately he still has time to improve himself. As he was looking at Tsunade seriously, Tsunade suddenly patted his shoulder. I haven't seen you for a while. I heard that there is a maniac who takes on tasks here. It should be you. During the peak period, you took 7 tasks in a row. Are you so short of money? You are just a workaholic. Takashi knew that this guy would not come to the temple for no reason, so he didn't waste any words and asked directly. Beautiful Tsunade, is there something wrong? Hearing that Tsunade was called Beautiful Tsunade, his mood instantly improved a lot. You are just better at talking than that Naruto, but I really want to find you this time. I want to borrow some money. Takashi now wants to break every dollar. If he has more than $1, he will have to tie it to his ribs. He can't do scientific research. It is too expensive. The speed of burning money is beyond his imagination, especially in the advanced stage. All kinds of expensive materials are emerging in an endless stream. How can he lend money to this gambler? And the most important thing is that Tsunade can only lose but not win. She is definitely a money-giving boy. Takahashi-kun, can you please spare me a moment to talk? The two turned around at the same time and found that the person who was talking was actually Danzo's personal bodyguard, Yamanaka Feng. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Danzo's Recruitment. Takahashi really wanted to say that he didn't have time, but then he thought again. If he didn't give this old guy face, he might be desperate and do something very annoying, and it would be bad if it would cause more trouble. Okay, I have time. What he didn't expect was that Tsunade beside him actually raised her hand and said, I have time too, take me with you. After saying that, she also winked at Takahashi playfully, as if to say that her sister did this in a way that was not authentic. Although Tsunade is usually careless, she is definitely an old hand in dealing with things. She knows that Danzo's finding the boy must be bad, and this is the team member she has chosen. How can she let that guy find him? If there is anyone in the entire Konoha village who can ignore Danzo, Tsunade must be one of them. Yamanaka Feng stood aside with a very ugly face. Well, Tsunade-sama, isn't this a bit against the rules? Danzo-sama only invited Takahashi-kun. Tsunade's eyes narrowed slightly, her tone gradually became dangerous, and her hands clenched tightly, making a crackling sound. You mean I'm not worthy? No, no, no. Shanzan Feng was frightened, and quickly denied it. He couldn't afford to offend the granddaughter of the first generation. Even the third generation Hokage had a headache when seeing this person. He didn't dare to make her unhappy. But if he couldn't invite Takahashi back, he wouldn't be able to explain to Danzo. After thinking about both sides, he felt that neither side was right, so he had to bite the bullet and said, well, Tsunade-sama, you can come with us. Tsunade's face showed a smug look. Then lead the way. Shanzan Feng dejectedly took the two to find Danzo and received Takahashi in his secret room. Danzo was behind a screen, and Shanzan Feng had to report before coming in. Danzo-sama, Takahashi-kun has been brought here, and Tsunade-sama. Ah. Danzo's puzzled voice came clearly from inside. Why is there this guy? Although he thought so in his heart, he didn't show it too explicitly. It only took a moment to react, but there was obviously dissatisfaction in his tone. Okay, you've worked hard, please leave. Shanzan Feng walked away with a stiff face. Tsunade was very familiar after entering the room, and it was obvious that this was not her first time here. However, Takahashi did not expect that she actually sat down properly and spoke politely. Long time no see, Master Danzo. In terms of status, Danzo's current position is higher than Tsunade, and it is not wrong to call him master. After all, personal relationships cannot be put on the surface in the face of official affairs. Yes, I'm talking about Uzumaki Naruto. Danzo had prepared a lot of words to fool Takahashi before, but now he couldn't say a word, because many things were false, or half true and half false, and he had even prepared that if Takahashi disagreed, he would directly threaten him. But now Tsunade was next to him, and he couldn't do that. He could only look at Takahashi, and said in a more relaxed tone, don't you trust me? You even brought a guard with you. He was talking about Tsunade who was in the way, but she was not willing to be outdone. I just haven't seen Lord Danzo for a long time, and I want to visit you. If you two have something to talk about, I won't interrupt, but it's better if I don't exist." Danzo was so angry. He had been looking for this guy many times, but couldn't find him. Every time he knocked on the door of his house, no one came. When he asked, he knew that this guy was not on a mission again. It was not until this time that he caught him. Unexpectedly, he met Tsunade, this hateful guy. "I also want to pretend that you don't exist, but how can you, a living person, breathe here?" He barely suppressed his anger and made himself look a little more amiable. He first tricked him in, and he had the final say in what happened next. If he dared to disobey, he would directly label him a judge and hunt him down by the whole village. He was still very confident in his methods of combining kindness and force for so many years. The big stick plus honey, this trick was always effective. "Takashi, you are young and powerful. You should have a better development, or make more contributions to Konoha, so that the will of fire can be better blossomed. Are you willing?" Takashi thought that it finally came. It was a classic question. He didn't even ask you whether you would join or not. He directly judged you on the moral high ground. If you said you would, then there was no way. You could only join his subordinates. But if you said you didn't want to, he would continue to morally destroy you and talk about the will of fire. You, a bastard, still have the nerve to mention the will of fire. Anyone with a little bit of face would not say such shameless words. Just when he was thinking about how to refuse without leaving any trace, Steel Hand suddenly interrupted and said, "Let me interrupt. Please don't mind. This guy is the pillar of our medical department. If he leaves, what will we do in a week? We also have to help Team 7 to carry out missions, and there are many other things. If he wants to join the route, I'm afraid there will be many people who object." Danzo was so angry. Who said he wouldn't interrupt just now? And what is he doing here now? As expected, women's mouths are deceitful. His face was a little embarrassed. "I just think that capable people should shine in more suitable positions. Takashi's ability is obvious, and he is more suitable to play his role here, and can even play several times the role in other positions." Tsunade asked directly. "So what you mean is that our medical department is not important? Which ninja world war was not without us? If there was no medical department, the number of people who would die in these ninja world wars would probably increase exponentially. This counterattack is also strong enough. You accuse me on the moral high ground, and I will slander you and put a big hat on you from the point of status and interests." When Danzo heard this is too much. This is his usual trick, but it was someone else who got it first. So the two of them started to play take eye. As you go back and forth, Takashi watched happily by the side. In the end, there was no way to make Danzo angry, so he waved his sleeves and left directly. When he left, he only said that he could leave at his own convenience, and then he left the room alone and sulked. Takashi silently gave the master a thumbs up. "Awesome, really awesome. Being able to do take-eye with this old guy to this extent is amazing." Tsunade didn't know what take-eye meant, but judging from the tone, she should be praising herself. "I have many more amazing things to do, and I will teach you slowly in the future. But now I'm in trouble. You have to help me." Takashi was also very happy now, patting her chest and agreeing directly. "Of course, I'll help you when I'm in trouble. Just tell me what's the matter. Lend me some money." The high school was confused and was so busy dealing with Danzo that she forgot about this. Chapter 50, Ninja Mercenaries. In the past few days, Takashi began to work harder to accept tasks because he became poorer after being blackmailed by Tsunade. After all, it is not good to refuse to help someone. So, he had to transform himself into an old ox, constantly accepting tasks and working hard as long as he could not die. Who can't do it? He is a man who is determined to become the first king of Konoha. How could he be defeated by such a little difficulty? Although he was blackmailed by Tsunade for a large sum of money, he still has a lot of savings now. This is the benefit of hard work. But he seems to be a little too hard-working now. One day, Takashi was on a mission. A spy criminal from another village was detained by Konoha. As a result, after he got out, he didn't know how to contact their village. There were actually 30 or 40 people to meet him, and there were more than a dozen Jonin among them. This Linoop can be said to be very powerful, but they didn't even wear a head badge. Takashi didn't even know which village the escaped criminal was from. He felt that this matter was a bit strange, but he didn't ask much about it when he saw the generous reward. Accept the mission directly and go out in the dark. The guy was seriously injured and had many scars all the way up. The meeting place was at least hundreds of kilometers away from Konoha village. Even if he wanted to go, he would not be able to get there in a short time. Takashi was not in a hurry and tracked him very steadily. As a result, the guy was also very smart and arranged a lot of detonating tags and shuriken mechanisms on the road. He estimated that, since he was so important, there must be a large group of people chasing him. He never expected that Takashi was actually the only one tracking him. He still remembered the wonderful expression on the face of the third Hokage after accepting this mission. In fact, this mission was to be carried out by the Enbu, but Takashi intercepted it. Not only was the Runa Hokage unable to change his mind, but the third Hokage had to agree to it, but he was still asked to be careful. I don't know which village's spy could make the third Hokage pay so much attention to him. I don't know, should I say he is lucky or unlucky? What was even more unfortunate was that Takashi was constantly chasing him from behind. After that guy had been running for nearly 3 hours, Takashi set out from Konoha village. The ninja who was running wildly in front was also terrified and panting wildly. He felt that his lungs were about to explode, but for some reason, he had been running for so long and there was no sign of Konoha ninja chasing him. But even so, it was as if a sword was hanging over his head. He ran for more than half an hour and finally couldn't run anymore. Standing on the branch of a big tree, staring at the back, he found that there was no trace. Am I overthinking? I guess so. After saying this, he suddenly felt cold and threw shurikens in all directions in anger. Who are you? Come out. Takashi appeared upside down in front of him. Don't I say, with your courage, you still want to be a ninja? Who are you, that the third Hokage values you so much? He did not answer Takashi's words, but quickly retreated and then quickly formed seals with his hands. But Takashi was faster. When he was halfway through the seal, he flashed to his side and cut off one of his hands. Then he stuck his sword into the ground. Tell me, who are you? The two were in a stalemate on the ground, and at this time Takashi suddenly felt the breath coming from all directions. He turned himself into particles, and then saw 4 handheld kunai piercing through his body. These 4 people were very fast, at least they were Jonin. It seemed that they were the contact people mentioned by the 3rd generation Hokage. However, he gradually found that the information seemed to be wrong. There were nearly 100 people at the scene, twice as many as expected. However, the extra guys were just genin, and they did not pose much threat. Takashi frowned. Which village had such a strong deterrent power to shoot so many ninjas? Even if Konoha had so many jonin killed or injured at once, it would be a serious injury. Although these people did not wear head badges, some of them had tattoos on their necks and chests. Gaokyo flashed past quickly and rushed directly to the back of the enemy army, sweeping away those scary people. Half of the 40 or 50 genin were killed in an instant. This scared them 3 points out of their bodies, and 7 spirits ascended to heaven. He found that the marks on each person were different. It was not a village at all, but a lot of very complicated villages. But no village could send its own ninjas to unite and jointly target other villages unless they wanted to provoke another ninja world war. Then things would be very simple. These guys either took the task privately and did these chicken and dog things behind the village's back and made some extra money by the way, or these guys were rebel ninjas, or they were called mercenaries. Because these people would do anything for money without any other concerns. In other words, this guy did not have his own village to support him, but his own village paid for it. Find a lot of rebel ninjas to intercept. The leader was a man with 3 knife wounds on his face. He said coldly, if you can't save him, kill him. The man with one hand chopped off went crazy after hearing this. No, you can't kill me. I brought back very important news about Konoha. Lord Nagato will never kill me. The scarred man's eyes turned cold when he heard him directly call out the name of his employer. If this idiot didn't say this, he might still have a chance to live, but once he said this, he was sentenced to death. At the same time, more than a dozen attacks were all directed at this man. The attack range was so large that it almost covered all the places they occupied. Although Takashi successfully pulled him out, this guy was also injured, and it seemed that he would not live long. However, hearing the word Nagato still made him frown. He didn't expect that they had sent people to infiltrate Konoha village so early. Although Pain relies on the power of Tendao and others, he is also a leader after all, and he has a lot of ninjas under him. They infiltrate various villages and obtain intelligence to support their next work. It seems that the third Hokage also knows something, so he detained this guy so tightly, and he knows very well that this guy is from the Hidden Rain village, so he can judge how many people have rescued him. He is really an old fox, but is it necessary to hide such things from him? In front of him, this guy's dead, and his mission has been completed. It is okay to kill the target, or take him back. Looking at the people in front of him, he felt a little complicated. You go, I don't want to kill you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.